Hey, welcome everyone to episode 90 of the GEEKYJUANS podcast, a podcast where we discuss anything geeky under the sun. Today we are joined by Derv of Wrestling After Work,
Very
to
good.
Jude, which screen are you pointing to?
I'm pointing to his.
Yeah, to your left. Okay. All right, cool. So today we are going to be discussing wrestling what-ifs. What if
Mhm.
what if WWE decided to reveal who threw the pie at Kevin Owens or things like that? Anyway,
Unsolved storylines,
yes,
potential
unsolved
matchups,
storyline. Yes,
and
exactly.
some would have been champions. Let's say
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been. Would
the
have been.
pain, the pain of
Uh,
this what if episode is gonna be immense, as we could say.
That is true. Now, before we start, can we just talk about the G1? It was super weird today. It's like, what the fuck happened?
yeah,
Well,
it's an upset day.
based on the results,
Yeah.
I haven't seen. Kaso based on the results, it's the awkward day one G1. Kasi diba,
Yeah.
some of the top contenders of G1, they don't usually win their first match. They have sometimes they have awkward starts or boneheaded starts
Yeah.
to their
Yeah.
G1 finals run. So I would expect that that's the case. Kasi sige, well, let's talk about the results. Naito lost to ZSJ, which is fair naman. ZSJ is
Yeah.
Yeah.
really good. So that's an even matchup there. Kota lost to Kota lost to ano yan, si Yujiro.
Yeah.
Of all
I
people.
shit you not, when I read a tweet regarding that upset, I instantly lit a cigarette.
No.
I don't know why.
Okay. If there was one thing, if there was one thing to take into account for Yujiro, my initial thought agad when he won, like these are the only 2 points he's probably gonna get
Yeah.
in the whole G1, or if not, he's gonna get another one and he'll be stuck with four.
Yeah.
That was my initial thought. Kasi yes, Yujiro, despite being a veteran in New Japan, being a long time performer for them,
Yeah.
a tag team champ, a multi-time tag champ, diba, had the singles run. Yujiro is Yujiro.
So true.
Yeah.
There is no other word to say it. And then Yano defeating Kenta, not really surprising because it was
Yeah.
basically revenge from last year. So there's not much to
Mhm.
talk about that. And yeah, it was. I felt it was going to be uneventful, but we got at least a really good main event for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, that we're going to reserve that for more G1 talk in the future.
Yeah.
Let's begin with the theme of today's episode, which is what if in wrestling. Inspired by Marvel's recent What
Yeah.
If series, and if you haven't watched it yet, please do watch it. Today we start off with what if Kenny Omega and the Elite never left New Japan to create AEW? Let's start
Okay.
with Derv. Jude pala.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jude.
Jude.
Sige. Okay. I'll start. I think if Kenny and the Elite never left New Japan to create AEW, I think there's still a chance na AEW would still arrive later, a bit later, or it would have been a part of New Japan of USA's plans, diba?
Yeah.
Would be cool. It would be cool, to think about that. So that's one thing. The other one is if they didn't leave, we can just say na Kenny would have had at least another championship run right now.
Mhm.
At
Yeah.
least one, or last year or this year. So that's one thing. Um, imagine he could have gotten. He wouldn't have had his reign cut short by Tanahashi.
Yeah.
So
We were
that would
there,
have
man.
been
We
nice,
were
diba?
there.
Kasi he was kind of injured during that run, so he didn't have that many defenses. He had like two or three, and he never even defended the belt against Yano, so that was awkward.
Yeah.
Should
May
have at
utang pa
least
siya, di ba?
should have
May utang pa siya kay
even,
Ishii and Yano, eh, di ba?
Yeah.
Yano deserves a match with Kenny again if ever Kenny comes back, which is right now a good chance naman. So
Yeah.
they're slowly building up the the connection there, rebuilding the connection there again.
Yeah.
But for the for the young bucks naman, I think they would have had they would have been having programs with God.
Oh,
Yeah.
so boring.
And I would want to see though Techers versus Young Bucks. That would have been nice. Interesting
How
yan
about
because
Clash of
it's a
Styles then?
yeah, it's very different, diba? You have the douchiness of ZSJ and Taichi with their technical skills and striking with the Young Bucks who diba, who are just high flying fast paced performers. So that's really cool. But then, I think if they didn't leave NJPW, AEW could still happen in the long run.
Mm.
Maybe just a bit. Maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't be active right now or years later pa. O kaya that's like the foundation for a US New Japan, di ba?
Ah, nice,
It wouldn't
nice.
have been New Japan strong, di ba? Maybe it would have been a New Japan elite version na that could have attracted like it's kind of like strong but the production value is
Yeah.
American. Yeah.
ramped up like pro American Pro Wrestling TV, so that's gonna
Yeah.
be cool.
All right, Derv, what do you think? What if Kenny and the Elite never left New Japan?
Yeah. I think first of all, we still don't know how management is feeling right now with these guys leaving. The
Mhm.
elite. We can speculate, but we don't have an idea because the executives of New Japan and Gedo are weird sometimes. But yeah, in terms of booking, I'll start off with the Bucks and then go to Kenny because I think Kenny's will have surely a bigger implication to the WrestleMania following what should have been his first Mania Kingdom main event as champion, right?
Yeah.
So with the
Mhm.
Bucks, I think they'll have this program like Jude said with God, and yeah, I would love to see them against the Techers and also did no, because I was thinking about Evil and Sanada being their challengers for Wrestle Kingdom 14, but I realized Sanada was in a singles match in
Versus
during
CSJ.
that during against CSJ. But then yeah, so I think they'll still be tag multiple time tag champions now in the heavyweight division. But I think with Japanese tag team wrestling, I think the Young Bucks will suffer more because I think their style and their personas fit American wrestling more because they're
Mhm.
the flashy high flyers um that kind of charisma that you want to punch them in the face or root for them. So going to Omega, I think it will be big because Omega was bound to drop the belt to Okada in the New York Day MSG show, right? And then
Yeah.
it would be funny if Omega was there. Surely Jay White wouldn't receive his big push, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Jay White had his breakout, I say breakout moment, aside from winning the world title against Tanahashi in G1, where he lost
Mhm.
to Ibushi. And we
Mhm.
would have had an Omega Ibushi, if you think about it, G1 finals. Then it's gonna be funny because Naito and Omega would have feuded for the Intercontinental belt, and
Oh, fuck.
add that to Wrestle Kingdom 14. It makes sense that Naito beats Omega and Okada beats Ibushi to complete their trilogy, right?
Yeah.
But the next day we'll get Omega in Ibushi, which is way better
Oh,
than the Jay White Ibushi match, if you think
nice.
about it, because at least there's built-in story. So I think,
Mhm.
yeah, although they've both parties, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, all three benefited from the creation of AEW. I think it benefited the Young Bucks more as their star grew from being your high flying charismatic 2.0 rockers or 2.0 mixture of the rockers and the Hardys. But now they're like bigger names because of AEW. And Kenny's Kenny.
Yeah. Ako personally, feeling ko, I think Kenny would have left either way. Like, if he never left, he would have found a way to, like, leave pa rin. Sa tingin ko. Parang, based on the interviews that he said before, diba, na he said he was tired.
Yeah.
Body couldn't handle the New Japan work rate anymore. As in, he went really light when he became champion, which I understand because you're champion, you need to like decrease your workload because you're gonna be doing more main events. Pero feeling ko regardless, he really would have left talaga. So anyway, if he stayed, I feel like the entire Jay White would probably be a mid carder right now. He would not
Or
be.
Jay White would have had the push right now
Yeah,
instead of
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, and a certain someone we won't name because of his past, but yeah, because he's like being the replacement now for Kenny, right? But
Oh, that
I have
guy.
a question for you, Steven.
Ano?
Do you think that because if you think Kenny would have left and there wasn't an AEW, do you think he would be WWE bound if he left?
No. Impact.
I think
Impact.
he would have tried.
Yeah,
Would have tried at least with maybe with the same in the same batch of the likes of Adam Cole. When NXT raided Ring of
Alright.
Honor
but I
essentially.
think Kenny would have been straight to the main roster if you think about it.
Yeah, he's too big. He's too big to go to
Yeah.
NXT.
Well, I was saying on the same batch, but if
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
he might not be NXT bound because they would have wanted to try him out like straight away. Maybe
Yeah.
like kind of like how they debuted AJ Royal Rumble style debut.
Yeah.
Oh
Huge
man.
pop.
Yeah,
Imagine if Kenny came out sa isang Royal. Wasn't there a point na bago siya umalis ng New Japan for real? Wasn't there a time na parang people were saying na, oh, Kenny's going to WWE? And then,
Yeah.
diba? There was a rumor, diba? Parang, alala ko, this was like a few days before nag-launch yung AEW. Literally in front of Tokyo Dome, in that little being the Elite episode, diba? Ang gago nila eh. Sobrang like, I get it, they're Americans, they're Westerners, they don't understand the culture of respect sa Asia. Pero we understand it, diba? Na sobrang bastos yung ginawa ng Elite.
Yeah, pero si Kenny received the last phone call, diba? Or the last
Yeah,
notification. So
Yeah.
that means I think there's some gravitas or truth na he was still undecided.
Yeah.
Pero shit, diba? Like, imagine how disrespectful that was. Like, it's just, but then, I guess time heals all wounds. The pandemic happened, so
Yeah.
the Elite only work together.
And look at what's happening now. They're collaborating smooth. Japanese legends getting TV time and being really happy about it because they're like, hey,
Yeah.
we're in the US. It's about time that they had Western exposure because they've been around. And
Thank you,
you know,
Prince
I
Devitt,
like
man.
the approach of introducing Japanese wrestlers. So they start with the first now.
Yeah.
Now, I think the only reason they can't get much of the other Japanese wrestlers because of G1, because G1
Yeah.
is happening. So
True.
Or is it a way of New Japan still weaving their way because we still don't know, right? Their exact relationship with the Elite, or is it just Rocky Romero as part of New Japan talking to and US expansion? Because I'm still not sure which is the main part there. Is it Impact or AEW? It's
I think-
Impact,
one?
right?
Parang I think they're both equal na at this point.
Yeah.
Pero surprising talaga na I thought Jay would be on AEW, not Impact, of
Yeah.
all places. Talagang, when I was as in, nasa kwarto lang ako, like, holy shit, what the fuck? Si White on Impact of all places? So parang, I thought, kasi Jay White is not yet a super duper big name in North America. He's like, feeling ko they want to build him to the Kenny level muna before he,
Yeah.
pero it's gonna happen
I
soon.
think they wanna move him. If ever they wanna move him to AEW, it's not as a never open weight champ.
Agreed.
He should. I think
World heavyweight
for,
champion.
for Jay White, naman, we've been talking about this, Steven, for like the past
Yeah.
2 years. It's a slow burn.
Yeah,
Jay White
yeah.
feels like a slow burn kasi time is on his side. Like contractually, I think he's around New Japan for a while, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
like he doesn't really have to do too much. And because of the pandemic situation, he's in the States, and yeah, he's and the fact that he's in the States, that's gonna build him up when he
That
goes
is
back.
true. Now,
Is it
speaking
just
of champions,
is it
sorry.
just
Oh
weird?
yeah,
Sorry, lastly, is it just weird that Jay White, the never champion, is in the States and Tanahashi, who won the US title belt, is back in Japan?
Parang dapat
They
baliktad,
have
no?
the wrong belts. They should have.
but yeah, it's weird.
Baliktad.
It's interesting, but
Anyway,
Tanahashi is gonna Tanahashi
it's
forever.
Tana. Speaking of champions, let's talk about a champion that, well, maybe should have had a longer reign. This is Jude's question.
And
What
okay,
if Masahiro Chono had a longer reign?
oh,
Jude, the floor
okay,
is yours.
yeah, okay. Let's set this up. Masahiro Chono, head of I think NWO Japan.
Yeah.
I forgot his other faction, but
Team 2000.
basically Masahiro Chono, for newer familiar with all, of course, older New Japan. Masahiro Chono is a guy that's kind of similar to like Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah.
Except that Chono is really more here, a truly bad guy, a villain in his sense. Now, big events. Imagine, I remember I was gonna watch Steve Austin versus Masahiro Chono for the NWA World
Yeah.
Title in Japan. Diba? But yeah, he was an NWA World Champion. But but despite his accomplishments, how much he is loved in New Japan, he did not have a lengthy title reign. In fact, he only had one that lasted at least more than a month, not even a month and a half. So what happened was he won the title, finally wins the title, and he got injured like less than a month and a half before he got to defend it, which in turn got vacated, and he never got a chance.
Yeah.
And this was also a time the G1, which Chono won 5 times, wasn't a championship rights
Yeah.
certificate. So it was just a tournament for that trophy. So yeah. So my question is, what if Chono had a longer reign? And I think my answer would be that he would have had, I think, a bigger mark as a legend in Japanese wrestling.
Yeah.
He would have been like one of the no. I mean, there's a musketeers of just Japanese wrestling during that time, diba?
Yeah.
Could have been I think Fujinami was in New Japan, right?
Yeah.
I forgot the batchmates of Chono at the time, but yeah, they were having it. They were handling it well in New Japan, and then you had Misawa on All Japan,
Yeah.
who then left for Noah, which we'll talk about later.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, I think in my opinion, like Chono would have been a bigger legend if he had a longer title reign. If he didn't just if he didn't get injured, he would have had something really cool, really special. Na people would love. I don't care if his reign was lengthy and it's his only reign.
Yeah.
Just at least it's more meaningful than what he had. Kasi sayang eh. He was winning the G1 as recently as 2005. So they could have had opportunities to have him contest for the title again. So yeah, that's my take. So I guess we'll have Derv next.
Yeah. So with Shono, I think if he didn't get injured, because that was his, I think, true prime was when he formed New Japan, New World Order Japan, and then Team 2000 as this bad yakuza type heel, which is a. If you think about it, Chono's personality is a mixture of Bullet Club, Evil, and Naito in one wrestler. He wasn't the anti-hero yakuza style wrestler gimmick that Naito has, but he's more of like what Evil is, the House of Torture, and the Bullet Club is, or in a little way, Suzuki Gun as well. I think because if you think about it, Chono had the G1, and he was like a precursor to another future musketeer, the second generation of musketeers, because he was the clean cut baby face, which was more on grit, and let's say compared to his batchmates Muto and Hashimoto, he was the one with, it's not an insult, but he's like, his charisma as a face was really bland, which I think it was really it was really fitting that another musketeer in the second generation happened to be somewhat a clone or an evolution of Chono, which is Shinsuke Nakamura, which we know had all the talent in the world, but his charisma was like zap during his first few years with New Japan. So I think he would have had a bigger impact, because if you think about it, he was the Nakamura of their batch, but his success, including the G1, was more. I won't say forgettable, because I think that's too much of a disrespect, but his legendary status is just remembered for more the G1 compared to Hashimoto, who had that ultra babyface run because of what he did, and Muto is just like, I think Muto is Tanahashi 1.0 and Tanahashi is Muto 2.0. So yeah, I think it would have made this legacy bigger, and because I think as a whole, his legacy, like what Jude said, it could have been made him like a bigger star compared to Muto and Hashimoto, because I think Muto and Hashimoto overshadows his accomplishments, including the G1, the multiple G1 wins. So yeah, I would have loved to see it, especially when he was a heel, because that was his best work, without a doubt.
You know,
Nice.
I am Chono.
And that's all he has to say. But yeah,
Yeah.
I really love his music back then. Yung tapos he would arrive in the Tokyo Dome in a Hummer. Was that
But
against
yeah,
Unita?
sorry?
Was that against Unita? When
Maybe.
he rode a Hummer? I'm not sure,
Not
but
sure.
that was
Not
badass.
sure. Now, I'm not too familiar with Masahiro Chono's time in New Japan, so I'm not gonna say anything. Let's just keep going to another wrestler that we mentioned earlier, Mitsuharu Misawa. And this is Derv's question.
Yeah.
What if Misawa and crew never left All Japan to form Pro Wrestling Noah? Where would we be right now?
Yeah.
Derv, let's go with you and then Jude.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think this was one of the most, for me, still the biggest move, the biggest exodus of, hence Noah, Noah's Ark, of talent to create their own. This is kind of like, if you think about it, this is AEW in Japan 20, 25 years ago, right? Because what if, let's state the obvious, as what happened first before the what ifs. Misawa, Kobashi, and the others left. I think it was only Kawada that stayed in with the members of the Four Pillars of Heaven, and then Noah, I think, was the best wrestling company in the world in the 2000s. And the big thing for me, because my favorite Japanese wrestler of all time, aside from Tetsuya Naito, is Kenta Kobashi. And Kobashi, as Noah champion, if you remember the 2003 to 2005 reign, in my opinion, was the best Puroresu heavyweight title run of all time. And what if they didn't leave? Obviously, that won't happen. The introduction of the younger stars could have been still there, but with Noah, because I think with Noah, it has that certain flair of mixing New Japan strong style with King's Road, and nothing embodies that more than the masters of the King's Road, Misawa and Kobashi. Because I think Taue back then was starting to decline faster than Misawa and Kobashi. But I think the biggest what if heading into this, if it did happen, because I think it happened because of a dispute with Giant Baba's widow and the
Yes,
wrestlers,
yes.
right? So
Yeah.
I think the question is, would have Kobashi got his reign as a top guy? Because if you think about it, Misawa was the ace, and then Kawada was his rival, right? And then
Mm.
Kobashi, as I can say, Kobashi was behind them, and then the one with the least recognizable run, with no disrespect, was Taue. But it was like Kobashi was building and building. Could they have jumped the gun? Sorry for the using the gun word, but could they have triggered a title run as long for Kobashi and as really grandiose as the Kobashi run of 2003 2005?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I
And
see.
would have Misawa retired earlier
Oh
and just focused
man.
on booking? Because I think that was one of the big what ifs of Noah as well, if we can think about it, because it ultimately led to his sad passing
Yeah.
in 2009,
Yeah,
2008.
around that time, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my biggest questions. Will Kobashi finally get his big title reign? And in order to shed from the shadows of Kawada and Misawa, and would have Misawa stayed and tried to just book or train people? Because I think that would have saved him a few more years of his life.
Hmm.
So
I see.
yeah,
All right, Jude, what do you have to say about what if
Okay.
Noah was never formed?
Well, if Noah did, if Noah wasn't around, we wouldn't have had, we would have had one of the hottest wrestling promotions of the 2000s. Along
Yeah.
with, imagine, the 2000s was like one of the best wrestling runs in any decade.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like Ruthless Aggression was great, and
Oh.
then
Mm.
you forget that you forget that Ring of Honor and Noah were just hot on their own,
yeah,
and they just swap around talent. So you sometimes see Kenta versus Brian Danielson in Ring of Honor. So like
Mm.
that's awesome, and of course, even though New Japan was in a weird state, they
yeah. In
still get
okay,
talent, but yeah, we wouldn't have had that level of crazy good wrestling at that time because
yeah, definitely.
um that's Kenta Kobashi, is there, but you had young Kenta,
Yeah,
and then you had Marufuji, young Marufuji
Oh.
pa, and then you had Takeshi Morishima, who's like an entire a walking bulldozer of a Japanese
yeah,
wrestler who Kings roaded his way to a Noah title, to a GHC title, and a Ring of Honor title,
yeah,
di ba? That was like one of the hottest runs of any wrestling promotion. It's like the one of the best wrestling debuts ever. If you had a debut run,
yeah,
Noah is like the top. I mean, cause like them and Ring of Honor are like if it's like Noah was kind of like Japanese ROH at that time, if you had
yeah,
to say, or Ring of Honor was like American Noah. You could just
yeah,
they were really hot there because they had the best stars. They had the best stars in wrestling at the time. I mean, eventually ROH would lose the
Yeah.
likes of Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Brian Danielson in a year. Kaso they've proven they can create great talent, and they still are creating great talent, even though they kind of faltered a bit in the past few years because the talent exodus is hurt. So
Yeah,
and
that's
all
true.
Japan felt it because Noah was like on fire, proving that you can utilize the talent way better than what they had back in All Japan, and that left All Japan kind of reeling, being the third, being like only the
yeah.
third place wrestling promotion of that decade, until now. Sometimes even till now,
I think they're
I can
fourth
say
now. I think
They're
even
fourth, dude. For me, it's New
yeah, well,
Japan,
Dragon Gate.
Noah, DDT.
Yeah.
No, actually, they're like fifth. So you can DDT and Dragon Gate are
Yeah,
like
Yeah. Yeah,
three or
Dragon
four.
Gate.
You can interchange those two. Sometimes Dragon Gate can beat Noah on a good day.
Yeah.
DDT
But
DDT and DDT and Dragon Gate can beat Noah and New Japan on a good
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And they've shown that like the past since last year that they have the talent, and they have the growth, they have the young
Yeah.
talent they can
Cyber
develop
Fight
to.
Fest, man.
Yeah,
Cyber Fight
Cyber
Fest
Fight
happened.
Fest is a
That was crazy. It's like
proof of Noah still being Noah and Japanese other Japanese promotions still being cool. But then yeah,
that,
if Misawa and company never left All Japan Wrestling would have kept cementing themselves as like a
Yeah.
top promotion.
mm,
They could have continued beating New Japan in terms of match quality in the 2000s.
yeah.
Because you had the if the Noah talent
Yeah.
didn't leave, they would have destroyed New Japan in terms of match quality. Like what is Bob Sapp, diba?
Yeah.
What is Bob Sapp? To,
Wait.
Oh man.
Sorry to interject. I think it would also block one of the biggest free agent signings or transfers in Japanese pro wrestling. KG Muto to All Japan, right? It happened
Muto.
because of that, right?
Yeah,
It was
and
a-
then imagine they had to have Keiji Muto and Satoshi Kojima to just
Yeah.
Oh,
just save their
insane.
butts in the 2000s. But yeah,
Grabe.
so yeah, that's
Alright.
a really interesting what if there on
For
online.
me-
Kasi, yeah, go
Mhm.
Steven.
Go,
Okay.
Steven.
For me, I feel like All Japan would have died. Kasi
Despite that?
there would be kasi okay, they had all the talent, but I feel like Giant Baba's widow, feeling ko kasi she had such a specific view of wrestling. And that's why diba Misawa and the rest left to
Yeah.
create Noah, diba? Parang inisip ko, what if it's almost like a TNA Dixie Carter situation?
Yeah.
Like what if AJ and the guys in the locker room said that no, we're done. We're not gonna do your BS anymore. We're not gonna follow your style. We're gonna do the TNA that Jeff Jarrett wanted. Diba? As much as I hate to say it, Mr. Cody Rhodes' blueprint did still
Thank you,
form a
Steven.
lot. He still formed the heart
Yeah.
of TNA. Siya, si Dusty Rhodes, and sino pa ba behind the scenes? I don't remember. Pero that core like really kept TNA on fire.
Yeah.
If you like feeling ko, okay, as much as I hate to say this, if Giant Baba's widow decided na I will let the wrestlers, like it's basically what happened in New Japan when Bushiroad took over. I will let the wrestlers do the wrestling stuff. We'll handle the business stuff. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe All Japan would be the big brand right now, not New Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Misawa and the rest never left, feeling ko All Japan would not be where All Japan would probably not even be alive right now.
Yeah.
It's
They
weird.
would-
Anyway,
They would have been NXT Japan already.
Or in a way, they could have chosen to leave and go to New Japan.
yeah.
And just imagine Misawa being IWGP Heavyweight Champion
Oh.
instead of Bob Sapp, diba? I mean,
Imagine
Yuji
the Burning
Nagata
Hammer.
had to carry much of New Japan for like the first part of the
Yeah.
decade. Sila ni
Tenzan.
Tenzan, right?
Oh man, Tenzan with his knees,
Tenzan.
man. Oh. Anyway,
Yun nga the question, di ba, yung with Jude was with Chono. The closest we had to like a really big Noah New Japan matchup was Chono versus Kobashi during Kobashi's legendary run, right? In the Tokyo Dome.
Mhm.
I think it was part of their. I think the whole title reign is still in YouTube. It getting re-uploaded, so it's a
Yeah,
nice
like-
reminder for the listeners as well.
I feel like if we're talking about Noah now, like I feel like that's one thing they're very weak at, and that's YouTube copyright stuff. Like Cyber Fight needs the help. Cybergate needs to help them with that.
Yeah.
Speaking
Also-
of going online,
Yeah.
Speaking of going online, Shopee. Shopee
Yes.
gives you everything you need, whether it's the Christmas season is coming up. Well, it already is a Christmas season. It's already the burn months. It's already in the middle of
Yeah.
September.
Anything that
Yeah,
any month that starts with burn in the Philippines is a Christmas
It's a
month.
default.
Mhm.
yeah,
So get that Christmas shopping ready. Get that Christmas shopping ready. So use our link podlink.co/02k, not zero. Podlink.co/02k, and you can help us keep the Geeky Ones running. You can get discount vouchers, you can get free shipping and much more with
Mm.
Shopee. Now, since
Okay,
we did
wait,
talk about,
Steven.
sorry, Jude, yeah?
I was looking through the comments, and the
Yeah.
comment we have is kind of fitting
Okay.
to ano.
Okay.
So, Tim Montales, regular commenter on our site.
Mhm.
So, what if Ted Turner rejected Eric Bischoff's bid to move to Monday night?
Speaking
And
of,
speaking of
that's a
Monday night,
perfect transition. My
that's a
goodness, that's a perfect
yes.
transition to our next question. What if WCW never faded?
yeah.
Jude, I will give you the floor for this one
Okay.
first, and then
Well,
there, then me.
let's see. Let's see the context here. WCW was like was what if Noah just directly competed with the likes of New Japan? Because Noah naman didn't really directly compete with anyone. They just
Yeah.
balled out. They just balled
Yeah.
out and came out on top in the 2000s. We have to admit, Noah was like the best Japanese wrestling company of the 2000s. If all Japan was on fire in the 90s, that fire went to Noah literally because they moved away. Anyway,
Yeah.
WCW was like one of the hottest wrestling promotions of the 90s because they had the fresh edgy approach that matches WWE that was ahead of WWE. But WWE had to attitude era themselves a bit
Yeah.
to catch up to WCW. You know, Monday Night Wars. Remember, WCW had like the long streak of beating WWE consecutively
Yeah.
on in TV ratings, and that was like a huge shot to WWE's arm, and which ended them ended up to with them just going all out in the Attitude Era, late 90s to just beat WCW and buy them. Diba? It was a very hard war, but yun. Then again, despite na WWE's effort to create storylines and develop talent at that time, WCW was also plagued, diba, with Vince Russo. So
Oh, that is
WCW
true.
was
That
plagued
is
with Vince
true.
Russo.
Yeah.
Like despite the amount of great talent that no, WCW had at that time, they were plagued by weird creative decisions, especially in the last few years of their run. Kind of hurt them. I think it kind of put them in panic mode
Monster truck.
when they got beaten a bit, in the ratings war. So I think that would
Yeah.
have. But yeah, if WCW never faded, I think the Monday Night War would have caught on up until the late 2000s, maybe. I
Ah,
think
that.
something's got to give, or both of them exist today, albeit on different time slots. One of them concedes.
Good. Good. Very good. Very
So
good.
it would be it would be moving to a Tuesday night. It would be moving to Wednesday because since SmackDown had Friday, WCW had Nitro and they had Thunder, diba?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They could have went for a weekend slot. So I think it would have been if WCW never faded, it would have readjust. They would have readjust. Both brands would have readjusted themselves in the 2000s to be more sustainable,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
that could have affected other American promotions, and like we talked about ROH, diba?
Yeah.
ROH may have been like the best third brand at
Yeah.
that time, diba?
Yeah. That is
It would
true.
have been, and TNA wouldn't exist. That's one thing, diba? If
Ah,
Yeah.
WCW
Yeah.
never
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
failed,
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeff Jarrett
Yes.
wouldn't leave and TNA wouldn't exist, or Um, well, you could say that TNA was like Jeff Jarrett's vision of WCW in some way. No,
Yeah.
could have been, but yeah. TNA wouldn't have existed if WCW didn't fold.
Hmm.
That would be cool to see. No, would have been interesting. Because Monday, Nitro would have been, if Nitro kept on as like a rival to WWE, it would have been an interesting clash of talent, week in,
Clash of
week out.
Styles.
Yeah, clash of styles, diba? Oh, yeah. Worth noting na if
Hmm.
TNA didn't exist, ROH guys would have moved to WCW and WWE. They would have, it was an either or situation, and
Yeah.
it would be somehow a win-win because you're in two big promotions.
Yep.
So, guys like AJ, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Brian Danielson would have moved earlier, maybe,
Yeah.
diba?
Maybe. Maybe.
Would have been. But yeah, that's my take.
All right, Derv, what is your take on what if WCW never faded? I'll answer Tim's question later.
I think with WCW, if they didn't get sold, in 2001, did I
Yeah.
remember it
Yeah.
correct? I
Yeah.
think they would have had a couple of months that their booking will remain the same. It's still chaotic, but I think it will force them to create new stars, outsource new stars. Because I think if the old WCW did not create stars after establishing Goldberg, I know they tried with the Natural Born Thrillers, with Canyon, with Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio and all that, the Filthy Animals, and Booker T as a main event. I think they would have struggled a bit since um 2002 was a landmark year for WWE because it was the year of the OVW4, who
Mm,
who will become the four biggest wrestlers since the fall of WCW in our lifetimes, right? Yeah, within
Mhm.
that span. So I think they would have struggled if they wouldn't uh, create more new stars, which the ruthless aggression era of WWE was really great about. I really like that they created new stars, and I think they would have folded and someone bought WCW. Maybe Jeff Jarrett, like with with what Jude said. It's WCW. TNA is the early TNA is Jeff Jarrett's vision of WCW if he was the man on top. But I would have said unless they get talent, young talent like the ones in ROH, if they mended their because in the relationship with NWA, because remember it used to be the NWA, right? JCP Jim
yeah.
Crockett Promotions,
It was
but
part
then
of
they
it. Yeah.
broke off because Ted Turner bought them. Would have if they have mended the relationship or renewed their relationship with the NWA, I think they could have survived.
Yeah.
And unless there's another big and ready for another billionaire to pack them up and jolt them to whatever level that they can be and be a bigger threat to WWE than TNA. Because let's be
Mm,
honest, TNA was there, which AEW has surpassed TNA in becoming a competition for WWE. And
that is true.
I think AEW right now could have been WCW if they one got a new owner that is a fan of wrestling, two created new stars and outsourced other stars as well.
Mm.
Because I think if they continued on without getting bought, they will still be bought by WWE, especially after the boom of the OVW4 and the Ruthless Aggression era.
Hmm. All right, nice. For Tim's question, I feel like if WCW was never bought by Ted Turner, they'd just be an part of the NWA, and maybe the NWA would not have died.
Mhm.
Speaking of superstars,
Oh,
well,
wait,
that's a
Steven. I
perfect
think I would
transition.
like to say one thing. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
About WCW. WCW was like the bridge to Japanese and West. Japanese
Ah,
in the
Yeah.
West.
yeah, that's true.
Would have been nice na, di ba? They had NJPW talent at the time. So that was my thought lang na, yeah, that would have been an earlier case of the and Japanese wrestling promotions just going to But yeah, we're gonna talk about stars in the next one, and this one is a spicy one. What if Austin 316 and The Rock didn't happen? So,
Ooh.
so the context here is that um, during the the tail end of the new generation era of WWF at that time, they had this issue of create. They had this problem of trying to build new talent.
Yeah.
They had this after Bret Hart, after Shawn Michaels. They had a problem of in the mid 90s to get new talent and create compelling characters.
Yeah.
So a few years later, they created. They debuted um, the Ringmaster, Steve
Yeah.
Austin, and Rocky Maivia, and to negative reception because they were all right, but people hated him, especially
Yeah.
they didn't like Rocky Maivia that much. So, ayun, the Ringmaster was kind of a dull gimmick. So, fast forward, they repackaged themselves into different stars. So, Steve Austin went and turned into Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Yeah.
became into let's just say a wrestling anti-hero, a wrestling everyman
Yeah.
that became well loved for being rebellious antics and fighting his boss day week in week out in on TV, which related to a lot of people. And we have The Rock, a brash young superstar with Hollywood aspirations,
Yeah.
with multi-million dollar entertainment star potential. And those two guys just define the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Their rivalry is short. They were like rivals for like what 3 4 years.
At the top,
Remember
yes, 3 to 4 years.
when Stone Cold was hot, he only had a short window of time to wrestle that hot because he got injured. He got his neck broken about
Yeah.
year before he got big. So that's one thing worth noting. So yeah, if so to question if Austin 316 and The Rock didn't happen, it would have taken WWF way longer to make stars of that caliber. Maybe they could have waited for Triple H to grow
Yeah.
from being Jean Paul Levesque, or from being Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the prestigious butler, the freaking rich guy with that's why his finisher is called the pedigree, because his old gimmick was he was a douchey rich guy. So that
With a
was
rich
one thing. So
pedigree.
I think if Stone Cold and The Rock didn't reinvent themselves to be like the stars that they are today, WCW would have definitely stomped them in the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Even though they would survive, they could weather the storm. I would still see them weathering the storm because they're a big brand, world level name brand. So,
Yeah.
but still, they wouldn't be as recognizable as they would be even until now. Because they weren't able to make stars. They were able to make Stone Cold and The Rock. They would have waited. No, they would have at least waited a few more years until the likes of the OVW guys came around,
Yeah.
diba? Or or yeah, it would have been different. It would have or they could have found talent elsewhere in the likes of ECW and WCW.
Yeah.
That's where they got that's where they got Stone Cold. That's where they got Triple H and Undertaker early on. So yun. I think if Austin and The Rock didn't happen yet, WWF would have struggled in the mid to late 90s,
Mm, nice.
and
Nice. Yeah.
would have started the 2000s by trying to just find a talent that would click. I mean, I think they would eventually find it if they had the OVW guys there. But still, yun nga. Yeah, WCW would have extended their reign of dominance into their
Nice.
Monday
Yeah.
night ratings wins into much of the 90s. And yeah, I mean, sure, there are a lot of great talents WWF no Attitude Era, but those two guys were like the carriers of the carriers of the brand. They're like two
Yeah.
faces that
Yeah.
people would tune in for. So yeah, that's my
Mhm.
take.
All right. There.
Um, First, I think it will result in WWE giving Bret Hart the money that he deserves. So he would have stayed. I think we were
Ooh.
talking with this with our friends Ro and Jackie of the What Ifs with Bret Hart, right? Because he was offered
Yeah.
bigger money by WCW to leave, and it would have forced Shawn Michaels to man up and give Bret his return win in WrestleMania 13. But if that happened, I think we could have also seen Brett versus Kurt Angle, like the possibilities. But the bigger effect for me was they could have focused the Generation X versus NWO. But the most likely scenario for me is we're imagine 2021, we're watching Monday Night Nitro and Friday Night Thunder against AEW Rampage and AEW Dynamite. I
Oh
think
Yeah.
that
wow.
probably could have been if 316 and The Rock didn't happen, Austin and The Rock didn't happen.
Yeah.
I would have thought. I think they would have lost the Monday Night Wars, and we wouldn't have Raw and SmackDown right now.
Damn. Damn.
Or I think for me, at least SmackDown would not exist
Yeah, yeah.
without
Damn.
those
That's
guys.
strong.
Kasi
Because I
their
think, cause,
the strong ratings help them create SmackDown.
Yeah.
yeah, because I think the main problem was their biggest star left after those two, Brett and Sean, was the Undertaker, and I think the Undertaker is a really good company man, but he wasn't like that megastar type of wrestler.
Yeah.
He could have, but you are forced now with a Shawn Michaels with attitude problems and substance abuse problems as well,
Yeah.
and then Bret Hart would have not been that nuclear heel that he was before he left. So yeah, I think it would have been a slow death unless, like what Jude said, the early 2000s. If WWE can hold on until the OVW4 arrives and Triple H is now the final boss, um, they would have a chance. But I think it also helped that they bought WCW because they already had established stars for the rest of the 2000s up to the 2010s.
Nice.
Yeah, but the main point is we're watching Monday Night Nitro and Friday Night Thunder.
Thunder. All right.
Go.
Speaking of company men, one of the biggest company men from WCW was Sting.
Yeah,
Now, it's insane to think. It's still weird for me to say that he's part of the WWE Hall of Fame. This is Sting, Mr. W. It's like, the AJ Styles joining WWE when he is
yeah.
Mr. TNA. Uh, but there was one thing that happened in the 90s in WCW that changed the game forever, which was the New World Order, or as Hulk Hogan would say, the New World Organization, brother. Imagine mo, he messed up his first promo as a bad guy kaagad. Maybe
Yeah.
it was the steroids, I don't know. But I did mention Hulk Hogan, who became the third man of the NWO. For the longest time, they were just called the Outsiders, diba? Scott Hall and
Kevin Nash.
Kevin
Nash.
Nash.
What if it wasn't Hogan?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was Sting? Like, how big of an impact would that have been? Saying hi to Martin Vicencio, by the way, on Twitch, saying the new world order. Oh my. All right. Since this is Derv's question, let's start with Derv. What if Sting was the NWO's third man and not Hulk Hogan?
Um, I think it would have hurt the fans more. The WCW faithful, not the ones that came on because there's Hogan. I think Hogan would have still been that baby face, although it's losing its appeal. And there's a good reason why he had a career renaissance in the late 90s because of the NWO. But if you think about it, would it have had the bigger exposure that because of what happened because it's Hogan and now it's Sting? Maybe not, but I think it would have sucked more for the WCW loyal fans. Because Sting was the heart and soul. He was like the John Cena of WCW. He was the hero of everyone loyal to WCW. He was the antithesis to Ric Flair, who was pompous, who was arrogant, who was like
Swings his
kind of
dick
like
around in airplanes.
Yeah, just being a just being a complete
Uh,
yeah, being a complete jerk. That's
right.
yeah, yeah.
what we've
Yeah,
seen.
yeah. So he
And
was the anti jerk. Yeah, if you haven't watched Dark Side of the Ring about the
Please
yeah,
do.
plane ride
it's
Please do.
hotel, watch it. So yeah, because it would have hurt because Sting was the hero. He was WCW. He was named the greatest WCW superstar of all time, and it has its merits because he was the guy that carried everyone's hopes when Dusty was out, when Ricky the Steamboat was out. There was only one guy who can challenge the then what you call this the then dominant champion, kind of like a better version of Triple H's Reign of Terror. But yeah, I think it would have hurt the fans more, the loyalists for WCW, and would it have been more sustainable? I think in terms of you're gonna sacrifice mainstream media by not having Hogan, but I think it would have been sustainable because you kept it to the people that there's one WCW guy and two outsiders, although ex WCW guys. And I think with the WCW NWO storyline, I think it went to a point that it was really good, but it declined because of the group being too bloated and had to split into two groups, right? Because
Yeah.
people were torn because some people found Hogan's crew, the Black and White, to be the typical heels, while they want a cool bad guy, which was in the form of the Wolfpack. But I think with Sting there, they would have hated it more. They would have hated it more like I don't know, Bullet Club House of Torture, like how we hate the House of Torture.
Yeah.
And I think with Sting being the WCW guy, he would have put the company into the when it comes to like the backstage politics into more and more importance because Hogan is like he just wanted I don't know, and it became bloated. So I think it would have hurt the fans more, the loyal fans. But it could have been more sustainable. But the mainstream media presence isn't gonna be there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Now, Jude, I want to ask you, what would you
okay.
think if Sting was the third man of the NWO?
Okay, I think one thing there, diba? Like yeah, it's right na it would sting the fans
It would
even
Sting.
more na it would be him kasi he's like Surfer Sting or Crow Sting, whichever version of Sting you have, he's like the face of WCW. You know, him and DDP, maybe like the two like really the guys that people love in WCW. And if Sting became the company's top heel with the NWO, that would hurt. And that would have unleashed a reign of terror of the NWO of heels, just
Hmm.
dominating the brand, which is like unprecedented in a lot of wrestling, even at that time, diba? Like heels aren't supposed to like lead the brand. You're supposed to root for the good guys, the faces.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an interesting change in that. I mean, that's what the NW did eventually. Naman was you know made heels like the top bill of a wrestling
Yeah.
promotion. But I think if Sting led the NWO, it would have been still a really good NWO faction. It would have been
Hmm.
really on fire. And I think it would be like around like a gauntlet of baby faces just trying to beat NWO in and out until they find someone worthy. Maybe DDP gets to beat Sting.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
I mean, DDP got to have that moment, and I think it would feel just as awesome to see him take the title off Sting. I think he took the
Hmm.
title off Hogan, if I recall, or he at least beat Hogan. So that would
Yes.
have been cool. Either way. I think the DDP storyline would have happened. I think NWO would have been a bit more, would have survived a bit better, would have been managed
Yeah.
better with Sting on the helm. Kasi you're not managing what was the 80s biggest wrestling guy. You're managing Sting, the company guy who's just there, willing to go willing to just perform his heart out for WCW. Kasi yeah, he was like their guy for like the entirety of WCW almost, diba? It
Yeah,
feels like
that's
the
true.
entire decade of WCW.
It's
So yeah,
crazy.
that's my take on that. Na if Sting was NW's third man, it would
Mhm.
work pa rin. It would have hurt. That's why it would work.
Mhm. Martin on Twitch says if Bischoff's end goal was still the brand split, he would still make NWO bloated as fuck. I agree. I
Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say. It's just it would just have gotten really bad. What do you think,
Mm.
Jude?
Well, I think um, even though you would split the WCW into Nitro and Thunder,
Yeah.
it would have still hurt creatively kasi WCW wasn't creatively sound in the late 90s, so it would
It's
have
the inmates
still
running the asylum.
be
Yeah.
messy. So that would have
Hmm.
been a problem.
All
But
right.
yeah, I think that's it for that item.
All right. Now we did mention the Crow Sting, who was based off a character in the comic books called the Crow. Speaking of comic books, we do have a simple gift card giveaway from Comixology, not sponsored by Amazon at all. Help us reach 1,000 likes on Facebook by liking our page and leaving a comment on our pinned post on Facebook. We are now at around 930 plus likes on Facebook, so we're very, very close. We just need like 60 more likes, and we are going to be giving away a $10 gift card from Comixology. Again, not sponsored by Amazon. So that is the instructions for Facebook. For Twitch, simply follow us on Twitch. We're about halfway to reaching 50 followers. So once we reach 50 followers, we'll be giving away a certain Funko Pop from the boys. But for number 100, for follower number 100, well, not for follower number 100, but we're going to be raffling off another
Mhm.
Comixology gift card that's also worth $10 once we reach 100 followers on Twitch. So please support us and we will give away that card. Uh,
Mhm.
Probably
Yeah,
the biggest event, well, in person, in my opinion, in this list,
I think
that's
we
just
could.
so
Yeah.
insane, is Jude. What if the Montreal screw job never happened?
Ooh, spicy on this one.
Right.
Craziest thing, kasi yeah, this is game changing for WWE at the time. And yes, again, I can start with this. So
Yeah.
context: Montreal Screwjob was essentially Bret Hart losing despite not actually losing, and literally getting screwed over in on live television, with Shawn Michaels getting the title off of him in the most controversial fashion, with Bret Hart just going mad, going angry to everyone, kasi the way that he left was the messiest way any wrestler could leave,
Uh,
even until now. So yeah, even until now on television specifically. So yeah, um, but we're talking about if it didn't happen. So I think if it didn't happen, Bret Hart would still be a top guy. And even though Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels are like have a rocky chemistry,
yeah.
backstage Not in the ring. I think they do well in the ring together, naman. At least there's that. But yeah, I think if Bret Hart stayed, he would have still sustained himself as like one of the best champions WWE has had. Because he really is one of the best WWE wrestlers all time.
Yeah.
I think he would have extended his dominance or his excellence in execution, I guess, for like a
I
number
love
of
that
years.
transition.
Um, could have had that, and imagine that would be the right transition to the Attitude Era. As Bret Hart is getting older, as Bret
Yeah.
Hart is just sitting there on top, you get the young upstarts, you get the Stone Cold, you get the Rock being angry at the status quo, and we're sick and tired of this. I imagine Stone Cold just beating the crap out of Bret Hart, and
Oh
I
man.
mean they
Double
had a great
turn.
they had a great program together, right? They had a great
Yeah.
WrestleMania
Yeah.
match. I think they would have extended that great run even
Yeah.
more.
Definitely.
I think
Yeah.
Bret Hart would have adjusted well to the Attitude Era naman. He showed that he has enough character to be different,
Yeah.
to be edgy, to be cool. He was cool in his era, diba? He can be
Yeah.
cool in that era, and I think he can adjust. And he can be the guy. He can be that legend in that Attitude Era. Because in the Attitude Era, you can notice that there weren't many wrestling legends, diba? It was
Yeah.
all new talent. And I
Yeah.
think if Bret Hart was there,
Yeah.
could have at
True.
least be the legend there, be the old school guy that could have and it would have the Attitude Era would be a bit different and maybe a bit better because Bret Hart is really good as a wrestler. So
Yeah.
really great wrestler and if it didn't happen, Bret Hart would have wrestled longer
Yeah.
easily because
Yeah.
Oh.
No
um,
Goldberg.
no Goldberg to
Yeah.
just no
Oh.
Goldberg to end his career because he was because as we know Goldberg. The reason Goldberg only has like 5 to 10 minute matches is because he was kind of not the safest guy to be within the ring at that time in
Yeah.
WCW. I remember watching his squash matches. Yeah, it's scary to watch. It's not. It's a if wrestling commentators say human destruction derby. Like if you see like a demolition happening in real time, that's Goldberg squash matches.
Hmm.
But yeah, Bret Hart would have wrestled way into the Attitude Era, maybe retired by the end of the Attitude Era, and
Hmm.
wouldn't have had his career cut short and his momentum cut short by Goldberg. So that's my take.
All right, Derv, what is your take on what if the Montreal Screwjob never happened?
This is gonna be a bit special for me because you guys know that my favorite wrestler of all time is Bret Hart,
Hmm.
and I had to rush because I was actually taking a bathroom break, and when I heard Montreal Screwjob, I had to run. First and foremost, I think we could have had seen. I think I agree with Jude. WrestleMania 14 would have been different. It would have been Stone Cold versus Bret Hart again, with Stone Cold
Oh.
finally getting his win back against Bret from WrestleMania 13. And I agree with everything Jude said, but I think the biggest implication would have been Owen Hart would have still be alive.
Oh
I think
my
it's a bit heavy because
God.
I was also a fan of
That's
Owen.
yeah. I mean, yeah, big take on that, but yeah, I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
would have
I mean,
changed.
I'm
Would
just
have
gonna.
changed. Would have changed the North American wrestling landscape. In
Sobra.
that sense.
Yeah, because
So
I think with Owen he could have had that guidance of his brother more to not do this anymore because you have a family, you're getting older, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
like don't do that
Yeah,
stupid rappelling thing just because Sting is
yeah,
doing it.
and he could have been a world champion as well if it
yeah,
Oh
didn't.
man.
Yeah, so
and
moving.
Heart Foundation in the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. You know what's funny?
man.
Because Bret Hart's anti-American persona was the prototype to Kurt Angle's pompous pro-American persona. It was basically the same
Mm,
gimmick, but it was more pro-America instead of anti-America because he was
yes.
being like that in Canada, right? So
Yeah.
we would have had the dream matches with Kurt Angle as well, and
Oh,
and we could have seen a Rock versus Bret Hart program, which I think Bret Hart was one of the guys who really protected Dwayne backstage,
mm,
based on reports, right?
damn.
Like Bret wanted Dwayne to beat him clean. He didn't want to beat Dwayne. Um, he had troubles with the click, and then the thing is, Shawn Michaels was also on his way out as well, so he could have gave
He,
him more peace of mind. And I think if he was there, one guy who would have taken a hit was Triple H,
true, true.
and I think that it could have been one of the bigger programs of WrestleMania 15 onwards as well.
The game
So
wouldn't have been played, I guess.
yeah, his push could have been delayed a few years more, I guess, at max. But he would still be one of the top guys since we know what happened. Because he would, aside from marrying Stephanie and all, he was really talented. But I think his push came early because of the Attitude Era needing more stars. Because remember, the Attitude Era wasn't the generation for the best wrestlers per se, but it's more of the best characters, right? So
Mhm.
I think Bret Hart would have fit it right in. And then when he starts to turn, I think that could have been maybe a big final run for him as one of the top faces again before he
Yeah.
finally retires. And I think he would have retired. Um, I think mid 2000s he could have lasted longer as one of the guiding hands from up the cards. He
Kind of like
wasn't.
Shawn Michaels in the
Yeah,
2000s.
yeah, and he could have had his he could have patched things with Shawn Michaels actually faster because I think when Shawn came
Mhm.
back, he was obviously a change man because late mid '90s Shawn Michaels was a wreck. So yeah, I think if the Montreal Screwjob didn't happen, some pushes would have been pushed back, and I think the Attitude Era itself could have been different, but I think more positive things could have happened.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay.
nice.
Weird fantasy booking idea I had
Yeah.
on mind in a mania in one
Yeah,
of the Attitude Era manias, maybe 17, where the triple threat uh, TLC tag team match happened. What if the Hart Foundation was part of the match against Edge and Christian, Hardys and Dudleys, diba?
Oh,
It would have been a weird look. Kaso, imagine that would have been interesting. And then in the main event, you could have had Rock, Austin, and Hart in a triple threat,
ooh.
or at least Rock versus Brett in the
yeah.
main event, which could have
Wait,
kind of
sorry,
what
sorry. Is the reason why The Rock uses a sharpshooter because of Bret Hart?
I'm not sure.
I think he
I'm not
did. Yeah,
sure.
it's like a tribute to the Rock sharpshooter as
Gnarly
not
it
good
is.
looking as other sharpshooters are. To be honest, is like yeah, it's like it's his own little tribute to Brett rin naman. I know na yeah, I mean the only two people you could ever base a sharpshooter on is either Ricky Choshu or Bret Hart.
Yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
Yeah, and
yeah.
another fantasy booking I would like to add from Jude's the great ideas that he had was Chris Jericho and or Chris Benoit versus Brett in a WrestleMania.
Would have been the all
Submission
Canadian
match.
dream event you could have had, diba?
Yeah.
Probably one of the in on paper that's already one of the best tag matches that could have been a top 10 at least at the
Imagine if
very
it
least.
wasn't Triple H in Canada, in Toronto, it would have been Jericho versus Bret Hart. Would have been
Yeah.
big.
I mean it would
Ooh.
have Triple H would have been greatly impacted because Triple H is Canadian.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean he could be just a part of you know, Brett's faction if he were going the pro Canadian anti American route.
Yeah.
The un-Americans essentially, but leveled up into main event status.
Yeah. And if you think about it,
Uh,
Edge and Christian could have been part of the new Heart Foundation. The new
Mhm.
Heart Foundation.
shit,
The
with
new,
instead
the
of
new
ano, instead of what happened, instead of David Hart Smith and Tyson Kidd.
present kid. I
Yeah.
mean,
Huh?
I mean, I think the Heart Legacy, which they were called initially, that would have been better. They
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
succeeded it better because they had the foundation of like Edge and Christian,
Parang
and
nag-transit.
yeah, the transition
Yeah.
would feel a bit cooler kasi oh my god, you had imagine these guys had like 15 or almost 20 tag title reigns and you're taking over for them and then they do well.
Yeah.
They remember they were
It's
tag
like,
champs naman, so
yeah.
you
It's
could have
like
won
how
more.
New Japan does factions, diba?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like a long-term story for the like a long-term reign for the faction. Like look at
But
Bullet
yeah,
Club, diba?
yeah, I
Like
mean eventually
legacy.
naman the heart like every stable in WWE they would split.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But
true.
yeah, would have been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But
Moving on to Jude's What If. Ah,
okay.
what if WWE CW did not shut down? So
Okay,
Jude Linder.
I remember we had this episode with I had this wrestling after work episode with Abel, long ass
Yeah.
one, where we talked about where are they now of WWE CW talent, and you know at this time WWE CW was like a bastion of young talent for
Yeah.
WWE, a really great talent, a really solid talent pool, and what was supposed to be a hardcore revival in a sense na it was a revival of ECW. They kept the hardcore branding, maybe less extreme, of course, since ECW was really really crazy wrestling. So yun. Um, but yeah, it turned from that a hardcore revival to um, what felt like a third brand for young stars at the late run. Because eventually the ECW originals left, and they were replaced by the likes of John Morrison, who rebranded himself, from Johnny Nitro
Yeah.
to lead ECW into a different direction, and then you had CM Punk there,
Mm.
and we had impressive talent there, like Jack Swagger was there. I mean, even though he didn't light up the the main events, he did the potential world champions. Kofi Kingston was there,
Ah.
Yeah.
and it gave opportunities for Christian and Matt Hardy to
Yeah.
show that they can lead the brand, they can be a champion in their own right. So it was a weird experimental phase, and I like WWECW because it was this. I mean, I don't like Raw. I'm not I don't watch Raw. I'm not a Raw guy for the
Mm.
longest time. I rather watch SmackDown. And if SmackDown disappoints me, I have WWECW since all I wanted to see was like the new guys get their shots there. Like I remember rooting for Kofi Kingston in his entire run there because I was like undefeated for a while
Yeah.
till he lost to Shelton Benjamin. So I love those storylines. And eventually, WCW shut down. And a few years later, we got NXT, the reality
Mm.
show, and then we got NXT, the brand we know today,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which felt like a clearer goal of what WCW was going towards to. But then, if WECW didn't shut down, I think it would have continued to be like ano. I think it would have continued to be a bastion for young talent, and maybe they could have had kasi the factor here was the PG era.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
There's a
true.
lot of factors that could have helped WECW, and I guess you know what I'm talking about when it comes to a certain ECW title match that could have happened, but
Yeah.
the very
Oh
unfortunate
yeah. Mm.
circumstances there didn't. But we could have seen if Kurt Angle lasted longer here, we could have seen him just lead the way for the young guys, diba? We've seen Wrestling Machine Kurt Angle just putting over young
Yeah.
promising talent. We could have seen it would have been a bona fide third brand na would have sustained a bit. I think if ECW had tag team champions, and then would have at least had tag team champions, they could have had a bit more. They could have had a bit more potential there. But yeah, if the ECW didn't shut down, I think they would have been a great way to introduce a new talent, like and not be branded as developmental. Kasi that's what happened, diba? Na NXT is like the uh, the the starting system to go to Raw or SmackDown. I think it would have been different na WWE. It would, diba, ECW is part of the WWE draft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
Diba, was a big part of the WWE draft. So that would basically WECW, if it didn't shut down, it's a legit third brand, and they would have if they took care of it better and did not shut down, that would they would have still we would still have ECW champions until now at the
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Sayang.
All right, Derv, what is your stand? What if WWECW did not shut
I
down?
actually agree with everything that Jude said. I think it would have been the perfect way, perfect avenue, like it was, to introduce new talent without speeding up to the big two shows. And with the PG, I think they could have focused more on the growing trend of people wanting work rate, what we have right now. I think WWE ECW was the perfect avenue for that. That they could have moved away from the extreme violence, but more on extreme like focus on wrestling. Because you had
Hmm.
guys like CM Punk, Kofi Kingston, John Morrison, The Miz, Jack Swagger, and Sheamus, who all became world champions in the WWE or in other orgs. And also, I think this is a way to bridge the gap from FCW now NXT, and it could have given WWE that spark of, oh, we have now a wrestling show, not just the two big sports entertainment shows. We now have our own wrestling show, which is ECW. If they want to watch people like Kurt Angle there, right? Well, let's give it to this one. And I think with ECW, I think sooner or later Vince would have given the reins to Triple H or Shane. I think ECW failing was one of the reasons why Shane initially left, right? WWE.
Not
Hmm.
sure. Not sure.
Because
Kind
I
of.
think it was his idea to bring back ECW. I'm not sure on that. I need to rewatch things, but I think he was one of the proponents to bring back ECW as well as Heyman. Wanting Heyman as well, right? But we know he wanted out when December to Dismember happened. But it could have been the best avenue to get someone from developmental, give them TV time, and then once the big dogs in the brand get drafted to Raw or SmackDown, then you build them up, and you can also move guys who are, let's say, need a new lease on their WWE careers, go to ECW and then wrestle there, and then try to win back the fans. It's just a win-win if in the long run if it was done right. But I think it was too abrupt. The end of WWE ECW was too abrupt for me as well. Because I think
Ezekiel Jackson as the last ECW
yeah, yeah.
champion.
Ezekiel Jackson, and look at what happened to Big Rick. He was Big Rick, right? In Lucha Underground. I think that was
I
the last
can't
time I saw
remember,
him.
but yeah.
Yeah, but it was. I think if they didn't end it abruptly, I think it would have been the perfect way, like to have a third brand, a wrestling brand that, like what Jude said, wouldn't feel developmental, but it's the perfect way to bring new guys up before you're making them ready for the two big shows.
Nice.
So yeah,
All right. Now, speaking of building new stars, there is a certain star that we love so much now that had
I
a
know.
terrible run in a certain company down in Orlando in Stage 21 of Universal Studios named Okato. I'm kidding. It's Kazuchika Okada. Uh, what if Kazuchika Okada's TNA excursion wasn't a failure? Now, let's start with Derv and then Jude.
Okay.
So I go first.
Muna, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think it would have made Okada bigger star stateside, and I think with him being a bigger star and not being squandered by TNA, I think he would have had a bigger impact with the with the Western audience, because right now he got his connection with the Western audience. Like 3 years, like when the boom of New Japan happened, like 2014, 2015, right? Which is like 3 years after the end of his TNA run. But I think he would have gotten bigger opportunities in the States and could have been a bigger special attraction in New Japan. Or he's arguably the most. There's a way that guys I think he could have been signed by WWE and became the first Japanese recognized Japanese World Heavyweight Champion. We don't know. But the flip side on New Japan is I think they would have pushed through with the Naito title reign.
Oh, that would have been weird.
Yeah, because I think
Naito title reign.
I think Okada stole Naito's thunder, which Naito stole back. Because Okada was the cool heel, right? He was the rainmaker. He wasn't a character that Japanese pro wrestling fans would have thought of. Like this brash new young guy who's like his gimmick is basically an American wrestler, but he's Japanese. Like he was brash, he was like kinda like a Randy Orton, like $1 million man, the playboy type. I think that with Japanese fans, I think they're looking for someone more relatable. And I think with the problem with Naito back then was he was basically Tanahashi 2.0.
Mm.
So I think that's why they flocked into Okada's. They became fans of Okada more than Naito because Okada is a new character, someone unique compared to Tanahashi, and is a perfect rival as well. But I think they would have pushed through with a Naito title run, and I think we wouldn't have Lij. And this is something really, really happy, but I don't know if it's gonna make you sad. I would have think Hiroki Goto would have won one IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Ooh. Damn. All right. Now, Jude, what if
Okay.
Okada's TNA excursion did not fail?
Well, I think he could have had the chance to be a star in TNA before going back to Japan. Then your big take, the man. That's
Yeah.
always the because
That's the end goal, yeah.
if they didn't, he would have at least been like kind of like maybe a Japanese AJ Styles, young up and
Oh.
comer, keeps on
Nice.
winning the X Division title too many times.
Yeah.
And maybe he may not win the TNA heavyweight title, but if he becomes like kind of like the face of the X Division while he's in excursion and he comes back to Japan, would have way made him like way bigger than what he is right now. Or the TNA excursion would have been like the catalyst for him to stay in the US.
Oh man, that
Would
was
have proven, diba? Proven that he could stay hang in the US. WWE could be an option there. Or yun nga, he could have returned to Japan bigger and have led him to America either way.
I think
Yeah.
question. Sorry to interject to you guys, my friends.
Mhm.
I think it would have had it would also have a positive effect that the New Japan TNA relationship wouldn't be strained, and Keiji Muto and Red
Oh.
wouldn't go come and help TNA.
Ayun. So yeah,
Man.
it would have helped TNA in the long run because they can show that they can develop their New Japan talent great while they're the a great excursion base better than ROH
Ah.
or even better than Rev Pro, diba? They could have shown that they should be the top excursion destination for New Japan if they treated Okada, if they
Mm.
handled Okada way better than they should have. Kasi imagine being the face of the company. I imagine being like, diba, Okada feels like an X Division guy. You can
Yeah,
imagine him being
especially
an X
with the
Division.
younger days.
And you can have him at least before Excursion contend for the TNA title, which rarely happens to wrestlers in Excursion.
Yeah,
Kasi wrestlers in Excursion usually hold tag team gold, mid card gold, and if they carry the company's top belt, if he had the chance to contest for at least contest for the top belt, diba? Going back to
Mhm.
Japan, the Rainmaker shock may not be a shock kasi
Yeah.
it was like no contest. Yeah, Okada proved already he could hang in the US, and Tanahashi is just like a stepping stone to his long term success. Ganon
Mm.
yun the thing. He would have been an even bigger douche coming into a bigger heel coming into Japan with that, diba?
He don't know. He'd be all blonde everywhere, not just his eyebrows and his hair.
Diba? It would have
Oh,
been crazy. It would have been crazy to see Kazuchika Okada as like TNA,
yeah.
TNA, and
Could
a
he have
notable
been
TNA guy.
could he have been the second leader of Bullet Club instead of AJ?
Okada,
Yeah,
Ooh.
because
I think they would have stuck with the foreign. I think it would even make more sense for AJ to go to Bullet Club if
yeah,
Okada was like top TNA guy, diba? Diba? If Okada like stealing the thunder from AJ, maybe something like that would have
Ah, parang
would
if
have
I steal your you stole my thunder in North America, I'll steal your
I'll
thunder in
steal yours
Japan.
in
Parang,
Japan, diba? And
yes,
AJ
yes.
would still have been an IWGP heavyweight champion nonetheless, whatever scenario. Kasi he was that good at the time. And when he when he got out of TNA, it was like, yeah, diba? You saw like the amount of dream matches that he had over the past few years, even until now, he's still somehow 45. He can still do almost 50. He can still do a freaking 450 splash at
Crazy.
this age, diba? But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the take. If Okada made it to TNA, yeah, he would be even bigger. The sky's
Hmm.
the limit for him.
Hmm.
yeah.
All right. Now, speaking of, well, actually, no, there is no transition for this one. um, we have our friends at Podmetrics to thank us. No, we have our friends at Podmetrics to thank for helping us. Well, with the Shopee affiliate links and more. So to get your own affiliate links, you can go to podmetrics.co, and at registration you can use our code GEEKYJUANS. That's GEEKYJUANS at registration, and we get a small commission from each sign up that you get
Yeah.
to have a better understanding of your podcast and earn money from your podcast. Anyway, speaking of earning money, we have probably one of my favorite questions, which is what if Paul Heyman took over wrestling operations of TNA instead of Hogan and Friends? Let's start with Jude and Derv.
Okay, so yeah, I think Paul Heyman. Despite what happened to ECW folding because of the lack of money, he was able
Yeah.
to create a brand, diba? He was able to create an
Yeah.
identity of that brand and an identity that people still have fond memories of, fond extreme memories of. And the what he created eventually led to deathmatch wrestling, North American deathmatch
Oh.
wrestling
Mm.
Yeah.
coming into mainstream, diba? And Paul Heyman naman is a really has an eye for talent, has an eye for young
Yeah.
talent, for new
Definitely.
talent. So he's been the guy who helped Brock Lesnar make it to WWE on his rookie year in the Ruthless Aggression era. He helped CM Punk, diba? Eventually,
Yeah.
and and I think if Paul Heyman had the chance to run his own show again, if he were to replace, if he were instead, if he were to replace Jeff Jarrett, sige, I think if Paul Heyman took over TNA, it would have looked different. I think he would have tried to create a roster that's focused on creating new stars, and once again, find a way to make a show with an identity that he helped shape. Because that's how he does things. That's how he does it. That's how he does wrestling promotions. That's how he does young talent that he manages, diba?
Yeah.
He markets them properly. So I think TNA wouldn't have struggled during the 2010s. Like Diba they tried going Monday? I think they tried going Monday ata at
Yeah, that was a
least.
Yeah.
terrible idea. That's a
I
terrible.
think
It was
I
during
think
the
the
Hogan era, right?
I
Yeah.
think the Monday experiment would have been tried, but I think it would have been at least more successful than whatever the Hogan thing was, diba? That was awful. That was sad. Or they
So
could have, or ano, or Heyman would have stuck to his guns and moved TNA to an ECW time slot,
oh,
diba?
actually. Tsaka they were
Make
also
it
on TNN, diba? Slash Spike TV
Yeah,
at
make it
that
make
same.
it feel like a bit of ECW there, still there,
I
but
mean,
still
Abyss was
different
there, you
enough
know?
na TNA is always known for its uh X division, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine the X division would be like the highlight if Paul Heyman was there.
Yeah.
Remember that the WCW TV title was like one of the more was at times more exciting than the ECW World title at its time. So you know, long story short, Paul Heyman would have done would have given TNA a really great run, a better
Mm.
run, and we wouldn't have had it wouldn't have taken a resurgence of the past few years for Impact to be good. Maybe
Mm.
TNA wouldn't have turned into Impact if Paul Heyman were
Good
there.
point. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Derv. Para sa'yo, what if Paul Heyman took over TNA?
I think it would have been a success. Sorry, mobility. I would have. It would have been a success because Heyman wasn't managing the money. Let's
Ah,
get out of
yeah.
let's get out of
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oops.
so he's gonna focus on creative, and I think Heyman is fit more for a creative role and not an overall role where he has to handle the money and all that. You had Dixie for that, and Dixie should have stayed that way.
Yeah.
And I think it would have had a bigger what you call this? TNA would have had a bigger emphasis on wrestling because ROH is the one of the guys who started ROH and then Evolve is one of his proteges, Gabe Sapolsky, right?
Yeah.
So um he could have borrowed talent from the indies, from Evolve or from I'm not sure what time did Sapolsky left ROH and then started Evolve, but he would have had allies from the indies, and I expect him if he had that power of having the New Japan talent on a basis that he can borrow them. I think he would have pushed them better as well to improve the what you call this, to improve the connections or the relationship, and I think it would have been a better alternative because I think TNA back then was the alternative since WWE still had good matches, but during the PG era, the height of the PG era was also the peak of TNA. So I think that helped them being the alternative to sports entertainment. And I don't know if TNA was still around. I mean, if TNA got bigger because of Heyman, I think there would have been no AEW, but I think Tony Khan would have invested in TNA.
Ooh. I
Monday
like
Night
that
Wars
theory.
would have been Monday Night Wars 2.0 would have been a bigger possibility. Would have ended better as I said.
Yeah.
Interesting, diba? It's
Imagine
Hmm.
big money coming in.
Tony Khan and Paul Heyman as the bookers.
So yeah,
Oh,
imagine Tony Khan cashing in on TNA eventually
grabe
to
no. That'd be
from Paul
insane.
Heyman to him. That would have been that would have been interesting.
Yeah, and Heyman isn't handling money, so he's still a good thing.
Yeah, diba? Heyman not cashing in
Yeah.
literally would
Mm.
help save brands promotions
Yeah.
because just yeah.
Now I
Ensure the
noticed
checks won't
Jude.
bounce.
Yeah, now I noticed Jude was saying the word cashing in a lot,
Yeah.
which leads to our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have these are our last five, our last five what ifs. It's
Mhm.
getting late.
Yes,
All
this
right,
one's a quick one.
this
So
is fun. What if Mr. Kennedy cashed in his money in the bank contract? As you can see on Jude's photo in the background, it's Edge hitting Mr. Kennedy with his
Edge pretty
own
much
MITV.
stole the briefcase from Mr. Kennedy. I mean, he did steal it. He won it for, but yeah, yeah. Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Whenever you say Mr. Kennedy, you just have
You
to
have to
have
say
an
it twice.
echo, like after 15 seconds, probably at least.
Or,
But yeah, Mr. Kennedy was when he debuted. He had great potential kasi he was great on the mic. He had the persona, diba? That he was
yeah,
like he was he was introduced, he was announcing himself,
yeah,
which was big, diba? It
yeah,
was, Mr. Kennedy screamed sports entertainment in a way, diba? He felt like a modernized wrestling heel from maybe early 90s or late 80s, diba?
yeah,
He was brash, he was arrogant, he was fresh off the scene. He was there, fresh.
yeah,
And
Fresh.
that's what WWE needed rin. He was a new talent. And
yeah,
um, also worth noting that Eddie Guerrero's last ever televised match was Mr. Kennedy.
yeah,
Oh.
But yeah, Mr. Kennedy played really well on that, diba? You saw him
yeah,
play along with Eddie, and
yeah. The chair.
yeah, I mean, as sad na that's Eddie's last match. It was still fun kasi
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Kennedy made it work. And yeah, eventually, his character work was good enough, and it showed that he had main event potential,
Yeah.
eventually winning this third Money in the Bank
yeah,
ladder
yeah,
match. So after RVD winning, it was Mr. Kennedy's turn. And I would
Ready.
and then he announced that he wouldn't cash in until WrestleMania 24, the next Mania, which would have been interesting because he declared that meant
yeah,
WWE at one point had a year-long plan to turn Mr. Kennedy into something
Yeah.
before cashing in and stealing the show from someone in Mania the next year.
Mm.
yeah,
And that would have been cool because he could have stolen it from John Cena. He could have stolen it
Oh.
from Batista or Undertaker or Edge instead of the other way around, diba, for Edge, for the case of Edge. Diba? Would have been cool, diba? Imagine na Mr. Kennedy would have been the Miz before the Miz.
yeah,
In some way, diba? The Miz was kind of like what Mr. Kennedy could have been.
yeah,
Diba? We could have, diba? Miz had the mic work. And Miz had the cash in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Di ba sayang?
Sayang.
I think Miz is like Miz is like a good comparison to the what if of Mr. Kennedy. Could have been the
Yeah.
Miz earlier, but maybe even bigger. Kasi diba there was a time that he was gonna be Mr. McMahon's secret son.
yeah. The Kennedy, illegitimate Kennedy son.
Yeah,
Si
diba?
Kennedy
It would have
McMahon, di ba?
been would that would either have propelled him to another level or actually just dropped him, diba? But
Yeah,
but it could have had huge changes to his career. But unfortunately, he was injured, diba? He was injured constantly. He was part of a wellness policy violation for
yeah,
steroids. And he backdropped the strong styled Randy Orton, which led him to getting released. He almost re-injured Orton in one Denver Nuggets versus Los Angeles Lakers tag team match. So that was unfortunate.
yeah,
But yeah, if he did cash in, yeah, he would have been a big draw in some way. He would have at least
yeah,
had a run for a couple of years as a big heel. Because he at least had the persona. He at least had the huge annoying presence, diba, to be a star
yeah.
at the very least.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my take.
All
Yeah, it
right,
could have been
Derv.
the Miz before the Miz.
Yeah. So I was talking to Jude and Steven before we went live and said that Kennedy reminded me of a white guy version of The Rock. I think it was the mid 2000s version of The Rock's persona back then when he started out as a heel from the Nation of Domination. Because like The Rock, he wasn't really the best wrestler. He was a good wrestler, not okay at best, but good. but his strength was his mic work and his character, which was The Rock's strong suits as well. And I think he would have been one of the biggest stars in the WWE and could have gave in gave Triple H the perfect replacement for him because Triple H was still up in the cars back then as a face, but you have Edge as the main bad guy of Raw, or was he in Raw and SmackDown? But
SmackDown. He was SmackDown
was
for
SmackDown,
the
and then
most part.
Randy Orton was the one on Raw. So you could have had a three of three, because we had a three of three big baby faces: Cena, Batista, and Rey Mysterio, and Orton, Kennedy, and Edge would have been the counter argument to those three. And also, I was holding my hand because Jude gave a really good idea. He was, you're right, he was supposed to cash in at WrestleMania. And imagine if he cashed in on The Undertaker in the main event. He would have been the first guy to beat The Undertaker in WrestleMania as well.
Mm.
Oh,
To be fair, I almost put a what if on the Undertaker streak, and I
Yeah,
eventually
yeah.
answered my what if with Mr. Kennedy cashing in on
dude.
Taker. Also could have cashed in on Cena, but if
Yeah.
he cashed in on the Undertaker,
Nuclear
that
heat.
would have given him the nuclear heat to propel him to something big. So cool.
Yeah, and I think his character is so good that when he eventually turns face, it will elicit a big pop, a big like because he's candidate announcement of his name.
Imagine the crowd doing that.
Imagine a WrestleMania in Green Bay just for him.
Oh shit! In the Packer Stadium, diba?
Yeah,
Fuck.
I think they would
Imagine
have.
mo. Uh,
I think if
And
Kennedy was
remember,
still
Packers
there, they would have
won
done it.
won a Super Bowl around
around that. Ah,
the late
fuck.
2000s, diba?
Oh.
Yeah,
Imagine they could
With
have
Brett
just
Favre, right?
capitalized on
Aaron
that
Rodgers ba yun?
nuclear pop
Hmm.
for Mr.
Like
Kennedy.
imagine like the entire Green Bay, Wisconsin shouting, "I hail from Green Bay," with like, the entire stadium saying "Green Bay, Wisconsin," and then God, that would have been so epic, no?
yeah. Imagine him. I think it would have been perfect if he was if let's say he was he recently turned face and it is now his WrestleMania to like have
Like he
his
won the
crowning
Royal
moment.
Rumble that year.
Yeah,
Parang
Rumble
ganun.
does. He comes in Green Bay colors,
Oh
the
fuck,
green and
yellow
gold
and green.
trunks
Fuck.
on a
Yeah.
Mania, and then the cheese heads. You can see the crowd.
Cheese Army.
Yeah, I think Jude has.
Oh
I
man.
think Jude suggested this one, right? The Kennedy Cashin. I think this is one of the biggest what ifs, and I think this is also one of the biggest missed opportunities. Not
Yeah.
just because of WWE's like mistakes, but also the wrestler, the talent's mistakes in how he carried himself, like with the wellness violation. But
Yeah.
I think it could have been one of the biggest mega stars of the PG era.
Man. Sayang.
So
All
yeah,
right. Now, speaking of stars that were being built in a certain manner, we have to talk about Randy Orton's first face run because Randy Orton hasn't been the best guy to make as a good guy because he's an Orton. Ortons are natural heels. Cowboy
yeah.
Bob Orton was a natural heel. I'm pretty sure even Randy Orton's grandpa was also a wrestler. Tama
I
ba?
think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. He
medyo
was.
heel talaga. So parang it felt weird turning him into a face as a good guy. In other words, Jude, Jude first, and then Derv. What do you guys think of Randy Orton if he worked, if his first run as a good guy worked? Jude, you go first.
Hmm. Interesting, kasi I can't imagine Randy Orton as a face. That's
Diba?
one thing. It's hard to
Same.
imagine. Because if he did become a face, because they tried turning him to some Stone Coldish type character ng 2010s. Kind of
Yeah, yeah.
like a tweener anti-hero in between, ano, yun nga, tweener. Kind of turns in between face or heel. And it didn't work, di ba? I mean, that's why Orton kind of had the vest, di ba?
Yeah.
Eventually. But yeah, if Orton continued this babyface run against Evolution, I think it would have lasted until maybe he faced one of his OVW batchmates. So that's
Oh,
either
that would be
Cena or
epic.
Batista. And he would have still went heel.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It would have been a nice experiment though to see Randy Orton as a face. Kasi Randy Orton as a face naman, I don't know, how can we market him as a face? He's clean, he wrestles really smoothly, comes from a really great wrestling family, and yeah, he has all the talent and a really marketable image. So it could have been a face. But yeah, I think they would have tried at least stretching his face run into up until maybe 2 years, until he just snaps and then goes to his natural habitat, being a heel. So that's my take there.
All right, Derv. What if Randy
Yeah,
Orton clicked with fans?
I was thinking about this because I was thinking, remember when he got beaten up by Triple H with the Emperor Nero thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think it would have been the perfect catalyst for him if it clicked that he will run through Evolution. Then from a Pompous Legend Killer, he would have been started. It will jumpstart him becoming the Viper eventually, really early, because I think he had that run from Mania 21 to 23 that he became like the Legend Killer, and in 2023 he was one of the top guys, but he wasn't featured on top of Mania in 23, right? So I
Mm.
think if it would have clicked, I agree with you. It would have lasted 2 years, but if there's one guy that the Undertaker could have lost to his WrestleMania streak that early, it would have been Randy if they went all
Oh,
in.
like all in legend killer talaga eh, no? Like that would have been epic kasi he's like Undertaker would have been the biggest legend he had to take down and
Yeah,
that would have been like the ultimate skyrocket talaga.
yeah.
Ay.
But the thing is, there's one thing that I was actually in Green Hills going home. Because I sent the list right of my what ifs. I was thinking about what should I answer, but then I realized Randy Orton who was a douchebag when he was very young.
Ah,
So I think
yeah.
that would have forbidden. That would have been also a damp. It will damp our what if because I think it would have clicked like Jude said for like 2 years, but I think it would only last like with what Jude said 2 years because his issues with the wellness policies, his attitude backstage would have stopped his push eventually.
There's an actual
True,
heel.
true.
Yes.
He's
So I think it's more of a what if it clicked, and I think it would have been more sad if it clicked. Then he got punished for the wellness and for his attitude.
Mm.
Yeah,
All
because I think
right.
Orton was one of the people who was, he has the backing of the company because he's from a family, but he was aware of his position and wants to be on top. That's my
Mm.
read on the young Randy Orton. Right now, he wouldn't give any F's about his position right now and just give a really funny dad answer.
Yeah. All right. So, before we get to our last set of what ifs, I wanted to mention Cinema 76 in Mandaluyong, sa San Juan,
Yeah.
closed down recently. It
Mhm.
was where I saw a movie called Cuddle Weather by Sue Ramirez,
Yeah.
and it was it's sad to see the cinema go. Kasi if you wanted to watch an indie film, you go to Cinema 76
Yeah.
or one of the few other places. Um, I guess that's another thing I wanna talk about one day, hopefully with Sue Ramirez. That's why we have a hashtag that we're trying to push called hashtag SuanX the Kikijuans, courtesy of Derv. Um, for those unfamiliar, Sue Ramirez is a TV star, movie star. She does a lot of more. She the way I see it, the way she picks her roles is more how can I play with this role more than just how can I, I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it, a lot of actors are here to make
How,
money.
in a
Like
way,
it's
how to make the role work in some way.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So parang I feel like it'll be something very interesting to discuss her acting choices, like the techniques that she goes to understand characters more, among other things. So if somebody here is part of Sue Ramirez's like media team or something, please, we want to get her on the podcast. It'll be super fun.
Well, it's eventually.
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 Hashtag Suan X the Geeky Ones. Now for our final set of questions, I feel like I have to rearrange this in terms of impact in the wrestling industry. So we're
Mhm.
gonna
Well,
start with
unfortunately,
Jude's.
Impact wouldn't be mentioned here, so
Yeah.
we
We're gonna
already
talk
ran out of
about
TNA questions.
yeah, so many TNA questions. We're gonna start with Jude's, which is Hiroko Goto Super Rookie, because feeling ko it's just
Okay.
such a big what if. Jude first, then
Let's
Kurt.
start this one. Okay. Diba? The what if is what if the G for Goto stands for gold.
Ang
Okay,
sama!
let's see. Hiroki
Hey,
Goto
the
was
lineage counts. Okay,
in
go ahead, go ahead.
2008. He was like he was he was the young star. It was like his debut year. I think he graduated from the Young Line system
Yeah.
in a way, and he was given a huge push. He won the G1 in his first year, and eventually, they gave him they gave him a huge opportunity to be their future star. Maybe, kind of like what Okada was given, di ba?
Yeah.
Kind of, kind of interesting kasi he could have had something. But yeah, if he won the, no, he won the G1, and in the next few years, he had opportunities to try and win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And eventually he did. He did contest for Tanahashi, but still, no. You know, um, he was the he beat Togi Makabe, by the way, in that G1 final, and Togi Makabe was a top guy at that time. So he overcame GBH
Yeah.
for that to win that, diba? That was a great
Yeah.
story. That's how you create a good face. He beat a, a really annoying faction, a really big bad guy faction, and eventually he in 2009 he also won the New Japan Cup, diba? Super
Yeah.
rookie. He had a great sophomore year, even better sophomore year if you argue, because he had a shot. He had a straight up title shot to
Yeah.
Hiroshi Tanahashi. He beat Carl Anderson, Shinsuke Nakamura, Yuji Nagata, and Giant Bernard. Those guys are S tier New Japan guys.
Yeah.
Those are high tier New Japan guys, and he earned a shot at Wrestling Dontaku, and guy lost. So, and eventually the year after, he tried contesting for the GHC in Wrestle Kingdom 4 as part of New Japan, and tried to beat Takashi Sugiura for the for Noah's belt. And eventually it was up and down for Goto ever since. He tried to contend for the CMLL World Heavyweight title against Ultimo Guerrero.
It still lost.
Didn't work. He tried to contest for the heavyweight title a few more times, diba? He's challenged Kazuchika Okada for the right to challenge the
And
IWGP
even had to
belt.
wear body paint and
He
still
had to
lost.
he had to have the go to a phase where he were battle war paint essentially,
Yeah.
and didn't work. Ayun, essentially, what happened was he didn't get the push. He didn't get the title opportunity that he could have had early, and now the G in Goto stands for G1, but he only won the G1 once in his first try. He was so close to winning the final though, but yeah, we never now Goto is no longer.
eligible.
So I think his title opportunity window just closed. Sadly, it's
To be
hard to be a
fair,
Goto fan because you're always gonna have to
hmm,
settle for for second place. It's sad.
yeah,
Now he's like third, fourth place sometimes. But
yeah,
yeah, but what if they did try have him beat? What if they did pull the trigger and just beat Tanahashi?
yeah.
Have him
That'd
beat
be insane.
Tanahashi, diba? Tried. Like what they did to Nakamura when he beat Tenzan,
Yeah.
surprisingly. And
Yeah.
even though I think the parallels could have been similar because
Yeah, it
both of
was.
them, both early Goto and early Nakamura did not have character.
Goto
Kasi
was just doing
they both
this.
just graduated from the Young Lion system.
Yeah.
Kasi Goto's character right now is, he at least has a fighting spirit
New Japan
that's
dad.
New Japan, diba? Very New Japan guy. Diba? Imagine he embodies the fighting spirit of New Japan, but he
Yeah.
doesn't embody a world champion fighting spirit guy.
Oh,
So that's a
sad.
sad thing. If
Yeah.
he did, what
Yeah.
if he did? So if he did, he could have caused the shock. He could have caused something like an earlier version of the Rainmaker shock that,
Yeah.
young guy beats Tanahashi in a surprise upset to be one of the youngest IWGP heavyweight champions ever. So, diba? Even though that failed, at least they tried giving him,
Yeah.
diba? Maybe the G&G one would stand for gold or golden, diba?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or great, diba?
Hey, but to be fair, since the World Heavyweight Championship combines the lineages of the Intercontinental and the Heavyweight Championship, Goto in what's the
Yeah.
term? In retrospect? Or not retrospect.
In association.
He's retroactively
Yeah,
a world
retroactively a world
champion.
champion. Like
Um,
Suzuki.
unless they actually say that, no, it's just us
Oh,
trying to cope with Hiroki Goto
bargaining na
never
lang eh,
winning
no?
it. You
Yeah.
All
know,
right, Derv. All right, what do you think? What if Hiroki Goto
Is
became the super
is
rookie?
Goto the Chris Paul of New Japan?
no,
Oh,
no, no. He's
shit.
you can also say Karl Malone.
Yeah. New Japan.
Oh.
Actually, Malone is better. Because I think
Hmm.
with Goto, I think I love what Jude said that he's like Shinsuke because of the rookie years. Because
Yeah.
Naito was Tanahashi 2.0. And actually, Okada was the third one, and he was supposed to be the Shibata or the Hashimoto. Goto was definitely like the Shinsuke and Hashimoto guy
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
one. And then Tanahashi Naito is kind of like Tenzan and Tanahashi in one. And then Muto and Shibata now, not Shibata because Okada didn't do like the stiff stuff. But you get the point. Like they were supposed to be the new Three Musketeers, the third generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you think about it, sadly, Shibata and Goto, as good as they are, and I love Shibata to hell, and I'm a fan of Goto as well, but um, they were the ones na Blanco. They're like, because Chono got the world title, the NWA and the IWGP. I think in every batch there's this one star that fails or just wins the title once or twice. But yeah, if he would have been a champion, I think he would have what you call this. If he would have struggled if he won on his first try, kind of like with Nakamura, although it was a shock, but he would have struggled because Jude said that the character wasn't there yet, right? They were like the plain strong style wrestlers that had no charisma.
Hmm.
Back then, because it was still a work in progress. So yeah, I think he would have been a Nakamura like run. And the sad thing is, Goto had to wear like the perfect time for Goto to win was against Okada after Wrestle Kingdom 10. Because sadly, after Goto lost and joined Chaos, the next guy who challenged Okada did win his first title, which was Naito. So that was extra painful for Goto, I think. Because I think that was his last shot at the world title, right?
Yeah. That's the last time he had the world title
Sometimes
match.
feels like he never even got a shot at all.
Where it's kind
Yeah.
of like Karl Malone, Chris Paul in one. So yeah, I think it would have been um a good champion, but I think he would have struggled the way Nakamura struggled to connect with fans during his first reign.
You can also say that Hiroki Goto moving to Chaos is like Malone moving to the Lakers, trying to
But
improve his
they still
stats
didn't
without
win.
winning the
Oh,
big thing.
sad,
So
man. Sad.
yeah, sad. That's but
Man.
yeah, I mean there's no time to be sad because we have two more items here,
Yeah,
so
that
that's
is
really
true.
good.
All right, our final two. Wait, lang, I lost track. All right, here we go. Is involving NXT. What if Drew McIntyre did not get injured in his match against Andrade at Takeover? Because, for context, Andrade was not supposed to win. They had to
Yeah.
call an audible because Drew McIntyre could not continue, but this was the main event. They had no choice but to make Andrade win because you don't want to make the fans go home disappointed. So, let's start with Derv Muna then Jude.
Mm-hmm. There you
Derv,
go.
what if Drew McIntyre did not get injured versus Andrade? Where would Drew McIntyre, where would Andrade, well, sorry, he wasn't Andrade yet. He was
And
Shane
Andrade
Almas.
Cien
Shane
Almas. And of course, being accompanied by Zelina Vega, who helped fix the Playboy. All right,
Yeah.
Derv, the floor is yours.
I think this is big because basically this happened, right? And if I can remember correctly, the planned main event of Takeover back then was supposed to be Adam Cole versus Drew McIntyre, right? It
Damn.
was leading up to that. And imagine if this didn't happen, this would have not kicked off the Gargano era of NXT.
Oh my gosh.
Because Andrade's first defense was against Gargano, and it started what I think is the true golden age of NXT.
Yeah.
And
Johnny
imagine,
Wrestling, man.
yeah, imagine if that 2.5 year span of NXT having the best, most consistent wrestling show and takeovers didn't happen, right?
Mm.
Um, wait, I just got distracted by that comment. I don't know if it's spam, but
Which
but
call?
yeah,
Oh, let me check.
wanna become famous, yeah.
Ah, yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
that's a bot.
Never
So,
mind. Keep
yeah.
going.
So I think Drew would have still became a big star because I think they creative in the main roster still want him. I think he has still Vince's faith in him, and he would have still had his moment. I think Andrade would have moved earlier from NXT because I think he was really frustrated back then, right?
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
before teaming up with Zelina, he was really considering leaving. And yeah, what if is I think Adam Cole versus McIntyre happens at the expense of the 2.5 year boom period for NXT after the recovery period from losing Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. Because I think Drew was the perfect guy to transition from the Rude era to the Gargano Champa Cole era of NXT.
Mm. Gets.
So yeah.
All
I
right,
think Drew,
Jude.
yeah, so to end it, Drew would have been safe, and then it would have been. I'm not sure, and we wouldn't have like the best matches in WWE history. The series,
Mm.
like,
Damn.
mhm.
All right, Jude. For our second to last question,
Okay.
where do you think Drew McIntyre would be? Where do you think Andrade would be? Where do you think Zelina Vega would be?
Well, I think NXT would still be in a good spot because
yeah,
this was like their most talented roster ever.
Yeah.
So that's one. Okay. Next one is if Drew didn't get if he didn't get hurt against versus Andrade. I think he could have at least showed up on the main roster as the NXT champ, kind
yeah,
of like a KO. Kevin Owens
Oh
yeah,
man, that would have been
Diba? I could
fun.
have had that and eventually, like Kevin Owens, drop it to someone deserving. Maybe, maybe the Gargano era would be great. It would be would start by having Drew leave, and still. But yun, I think or Drew would have at least stayed for another year sa
Hmm.
NXT at
Yeah.
least, and at least in the abrupt when he moved to
Yeah.
from NXT to Raw. I think it
Hmm.
wouldn't have been as abrupt as we saw. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
would
and
have at least
he came up as a
held the
heel,
belt
right?
longer. What?
Yeah,
Sorry,
with
he
Ziggler.
came up as a heel, right? Tapos sa
Yeah,
NXT
he
face
did.
siya, di ba?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
but
super weird.
yeah, so it wouldn't have been as weird. So he at least could have defended at least one more year at the most, and
Mm-hmm.
then move to the main roster, and yet ensuring that NXT would be in good hands because it would either be Ciampa or Gargano just eating away for that NXT title, and it would still be so awesome because those two guys are just really great, and
If
they're
there was
really.
fight forever, it's Champa Gargano.
Yeah, that's them.
Yeah.
That's one of the guys you imagine on Fight Forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then the Drew push would have been better. Would have
Yeah.
been more natural because you built like he could say na I rebuilt myself on NXT and now I'm back and ready to ready to be the chosen one as they
Yeah.
say, di ba? It would have been
Yeah.
cooler. Would have been cooler. Sige. But
Mhm.
yeah, despite that, we still got him as a WWE champion. So you
Yeah.
know,
Nice.
both scenarios will still end him becoming a world champion.
Mhm. All right. Finally, speaking of world champions, probably the biggest what if for probably modern wrestling in general. What if Daniel Bryan never won the double belts at WrestleMania 30? Where would wrestling be today? Jude, you go first, and then we go to Derv for
Okay.
our final question of the night.
I think okay here this is a nice thing. I think Daniel Bryan would be dismayed after this. Diba he may have won the WWE title, but he won it so briefly twice
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, once during this twice, at least twice, yeah, twice pala during this time. The year before. So I think he would be dismayed so much na I think he could have I think he would have chosen to leave.
Hmm.
Kasi that's kind of painful. Kasi you really wanted a feel good ending for Mania, like a Mania event, and you don't execute it. And um, that was the triple threat with Batista and Orton, right?
Yeah, like Daniel Bryan
So
basically beat all active members of Evolution.
that would have felt so sour because it would have instead of going to red hot baby face like Daniel Bryan, it would have went to Batista or Orton, who the fans are kind of tired of.
Yeah.
That would be that would have been the worst ending,
Hmm.
and they would hate it, and that's not good. That doesn't feel good. I
Yeah.
don't imagine it.
All right.
I think he would have went the way when he would have left. Maybe like I don't know. He would have left kind of like exited maybe after Punk. So
Damn.
yeah, would have hurt, diba?
Damn. Yeah.
And that may be that may be sad for his WWE career. That he could have that would have opened him to try out different things also, diba? Maybe go
Maybe
back to
Impact.
ROH
Yeah.
Yeah.
and win the title one more time, or maybe become the first for maybe become unlike Mox, maybe become something like Moxley, but happened earlier, diba? By going to Japan, trying out Japan. Maybe we could have seen G1 Daniel Bryan or G1 Bryan
Oh my
Danielson
gosh.
earlier, diba? And if
That would be so fun.
remember, Bryan was healthier before, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
even though strong style may not have been the healthiest choice for
No, no,
him,
don't do it.
he could have at least tried, diba?
Hmm.
If the WWE didn't wanna have him as their champion or give him that moment, he could have earned his moment, fought his moment elsewhere. He could have imagined him being in New Japan, diba?
Damn, that would be epic.
That would have been cool. Or he could have helped put ROH in a resurgence. Because ROH at that
Yeah.
time was hot. 2010's ROH was great. Early 2010's
Yeah,
ROH, diba?
Yeah.
Although
true.
even though it was constantly rated by NXT, it
Yeah.
was great.
Uh,
It had great talent. There's a reason why the NXT rates Ring of Honor. So
hmm.
yeah, if they didn't pull the trigger, Daniel Bryan wouldn't have had that moment, and I think he would have chosen to just leave.
Hmm. All
So yeah.
right. Derv, what do you think would have happened to Daniel Bryan if he never won in WrestleMania 30, the last numbered WrestleMania?
Well, 30 happens to be my favorite WrestleMania of all time, and it would have sucked. Because you had two bad endings to that WrestleMania, and it will be remembered for one, the Undertaker streak being ended by Brock Lesnar, and then Batista and Randy Orton having the Brock Lesnar Goldberg of main events of no one wanting either guy to win, or they would have just cheered Orton to win over Batista, which is gonna be awkward. Um, I think this would have made WrestleMania 30, like I said, less special, and it would have sucked because this is one my now claim to fame that Daniel Bryan and the Undertaker streak ended on my birthday. So
Oh
I would have only
man.
said Undertaker streak ending. But then with Brian, I think I agree with Jude. Brian would have considered leaving, and he could have helped Ring of Honor. If he left, he could have left and he gave and joined Ring of Honor, and gave it someone of a veteran's hand to guide them while they transition
Hmm.
from losing most of their top stars to NXT, and then also he could be in the G1, right?
Yeah.
Um, he could be in the G1. I know we know that he was craving for that Shinsuke Dream match because they were
Yeah.
roommates, yeah. And I think in the
Sayang.
dojo.
LA Dojo, yeah. LA
Yeah.
Dojo.
Okay. Also I wanna note na if Daniel Bryan went to Ring of Honor, he could have helped keep some of the talent in Ring
Yeah.
of Honor.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, he had the presence to do so. So
But I mean,
yeah,
Sinclair has
and
all this money, and they never did anything with it. They don't do anything with it with all
now
that money.
they're finally making sense by just letting the people in the company just wrestle
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
man.
they've been doing
I
better
mean,
now.
they finally
Um,
got rid of Bully Ray from the booking team.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
well, ROH has the biggest indie star right now in the states as well, to give them credit, which is Danhausen.
Ah, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Danhausen.
A star
Hi Danhausen.
of his own account. So
We
yeah.
love you on
Yeah,
Conan.
but yeah, I think with Daniel Bryan, he could have left, but I think this could have with with how if he stayed and with the constant peppering of fans, this could have built up to WrestleMania 31. Finally, WWE couldn't contain it anymore. They could give him the grand road to WrestleMania by having him win the Rumble, which could have saved the Philadelphia Rumble from that very
Uh,
awkward ending. And we could have
oh
had
god.
Roman Reigns' push um, moved to WrestleMania 32 because I would have loved face Bryan versus heel Brock Lesnar, the unstoppable WWE champion versus Daniel Bryan. That would have been, although I like the match between um, Brock and Roman, I would have loved Bryan and Brock batting at the main event with Daniel Bryan celebrating he finally won it, and then Seth Rollins cashes in, and that's your program for the summer.
Okay.
Fuck. That'd been
It would
epic.
have been But yeah, would have been cool. Kasi
Hmm.
Daniel Bryan leaving would have had huge implications for wrestling in the world, and he could have shown that he could have helped make Forbidden Door things happen more.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah, that's I guess that's it. We
That's
can
it.
look at the comments, Steven. So
Yeah, it's
from
crazy.
Facebook,
Kevin.
Carl Lorenzo also showed na hi for what if the Undertaker fought Sting? Yes, this should have
Oh
Yeah, we
happened.
man,
This should have
considered that.
happened.
that needs another episode.
Wait,
This could have been
wasn't that
that
supposed
could
to
have been a
happen?
streak breaker, and
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that supposed to happen because of the vignettes, and then they had to change it to Triple H because Sting
uh,
re-signed with TNA?
Oh man.
it's
Anyway,
awful. So let's
what other
not.
comments?
If Undertaker fought Sting, that would have been one of
Dream
both
match, man.
for both men, probably their best match.
Final
Yeah, it's the
Since
biggest
match.
one.
Mania. It's a streak match, and I would be okay with Undertaker losing to Sting.
Yeah.
Kaso that might not fly with WWE. So yeah. Next up we have what if the curtain call never happened? So the curtain call was after the curtain call was like a shoot incident now where Shawn Michaels and Triple H hugged Kevin Nash and Scott Hall,
Yeah.
and eventually it led to Triple H being punished because he's a new guy and he can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't really do that.
And he
So
wasn't Shawn Michaels, who was untouchable. So
so what happened was he was demoted. He was pushed down the card, and eventually they had to push Stone Cold and eventually The Rock.
wasn't that King of the Ring supposed to be Triple H's King of the Ring, right? The one that
In a way,
launched the
yes.
316, yeah.
hmm So yeah, if that case, if a very quick answer there, if Triple H went on to win King of the Ring, he would have been one of the faces of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
That would have been the possibility.
And we didn't have that legendary promo from Stone Cold.
Or Austin 316 would have been done elsewhere, maybe a Monday night,
Yeah.
a bit of anger. So, but still, it would have changed the Attitude Era because Triple H winning the King of the Ring meant like, yeah, he's the guy he's the guy that's gonna be the face of our of our entire era of WWE, the next era of WWE. So that's cool. This one's loaded though. What if Eddie Guerrero is still with us? That's kind of painful. That's sad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
honestly. But if Eddie Guerrero were still here, he would have probably beaten Batista for the world heavyweight
Yeah.
title. He could
Oh,
have at
then
least had a
one.
few more great matches. I would have wanted to see what if Eddie was there for La Familia.
Oh my
Diba?
gosh.
Would have been cool. That would have
Uh,
made Eddie versus Taker a thing.
Yeah.
If Edge lost to Taker next year, Eddie would just try and have a hand on I don't. It doesn't matter if he wins or not, but what matters is he at least was part of that streak. Diba? Would have been
Yeah.
cool. And
What's the
maybe
question, guys? All right, go ahead, Jude. Go ahead.
maybe Ray or Chavo would have had their crowning moment against Eddie, diba?
oh man. And you
You know,
know
would have
Eddie would have done it. You know Eddie
you
would have
know,
done his first
Eddie
match.
would sell for those guys wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And if Ray and diba, but yeah, it would have it affect kasi this entire like what happened to Eddie affected wrestling the entire decade after. It
Yeah.
was the catalyst for a lot of things that happened. So
Benoit
yeah,
would
but
still be alive, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and on that
Hmm.
case, so yeah, it would have changed so many things in wrestling.
yeah, and we
But
would
if
have
we're
had
talking about Eddie alone, lang, yeah, he
yeah.
would have gotten a few more world titles, maybe another one, because he's not he's a guy that's okay with not winning too much. Right? He won
Yeah.
and then his crown
JBL
gold. But
happened.
yeah, he would have still had great matches. He would have been
Yeah.
the veteran who just does great matches. I would have wanted maybe a main event Eddie Guerrero versus John Cena. Would have helped John Cena, diba? He had a great match with Shawn Michaels in Mania 23 and the
Definitely.
Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
That was so freaking long. Diba? The year after, maybe just have Eddie. Diba? Oh my God.
Well,
Instead of Batista.
I love that Jude said Shawn Michaels because I think if I remember this correctly,
Oh
the planned main
yeah.
event for the World Heavyweight Championship was Eddie versus Shawn Michaels, and we missed out on that.
Oh yeah, Eddie versus Shawn would have been cool. So yeah,
Oh,
that would have been awesome. So yeah, so for
I
Kevin
think he just
Dwyer,
didn't
yeah,
want to
that's
go
our
to Raw kasi,
answer.
di ba? Tama ba?
Eddie would have had no,
Yeah.
Eddie would have had banger after banger of matches and
Yeah,
retired quietly. Just yeah,
yeah,
I'm tired now. I'm okay. I'm okay now with my
Yeah.
matches and yeah, that would have been whatever happens to how he retires is cool because he will always have that legendary resume. By the way, I think a few days ago, worth noting, I watched like a match with CM Punk versus Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio in a triple
Oh,
threat match
yeah.
in
Yeah.
IWA Mid South for the title.
Sobrang
And
random, no?
Eddie beat Punk. That was really cool. That was a weird match, and Ray was maskless. So it was a weird, really weird thing that I remember. But yeah, that's our episode. That's episode 90. Yay!
Yeah.
hey,
90.
Well, this
10
is
more
going to
to
be
go.
90 and 9. This is going to be 90 and 91 because we are now at 2 hours and 30
Yeah,
minutes. We're
Well,
going to
you
have
can
to
go
split this episode up.
90.5. So let's just go
Yeah, yeah. Sige,
90.5
90
and
and
be
90.5.
alright with
Sige.
it. So yeah. But yeah, 90, we're like 10 more to 100, and that's
That's
cool.
right.
That's awesome. And for those who are watching, thank you so much for the
Thank you so
comments.
much, man. Thank you for
Those
staying
are
here.
really cool what if takes.
A lot of
And
questions
yeah,
too. Really nice.
there are lots of questions. Now, for now,
You can
Derv, where can we
follow.
find you? I know you're part of Wrestling After Work, and you've been a guest here for a couple of times. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
anything else you want to promote?
yeah. So follow me at on Instagram at douchebag. No, I forgot my
Ano
Instagram.
ba?
Sorry. Just follow me on Twitter at douchebaghetti. On Instagram, it's Albert Easy. And follow Wrestling After Work. And I want to promote The Hills. One
Yes.
Eagles brand. You can order their first
It's Baleta
design
Drive
right now.
T-shirt.
Yeah, their first design. And also, if you're a fan of What-ifs and fantasy booking, I'll have the guys over here. If they give me their permission, I'm thinking of something, and I'll discuss it with them as well. So yeah,
Okay, yeah,
the
sure.
future.
Okay,
All right,
but yeah,
followed by the podcast. The Geeky Ones podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms. Now, Jude, where can they find us on social media?
oh yeah, okay. So you can find us on social media, the Geeky Ones, just by typing at the Geeky Ones on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. So
Woo.
yeah, at the Geeky Ones, we're all we all have the same handle there. Thankfully, that's
And
really
then
cool.
there is another podcast that we have called Evolving Backwards that
Yeah,
we haven't been doing
nice little
much for a while, but
Slice
Yeah.
of
yeah.
Life podcast where we usually talk about things, various life questions, big questions. It's usually just one question and we just everyone answer. It's really cool. So gonna be cool. And now also you
We
can also
also
find us
Mhm.
on thegeekyones.com.
That's
Yeah,
right.
where
That's
we
right.
have our blogs. Recently we wrote the Splitgate review. We thought we played the game and it was really fun. And yeah, I think yeah, and Steven, where can we find you first?
All right. So you can find me at Stevie Said Yup on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I blog about random things like, well, mostly
Bumble.
comic books and ice hockey.
Mm-hmm.
There's also I've been learning how to skateboard, but I do not have skateboarding highlights yet because I am not on that level of progression yet. But hopefully, I'll be there soon. Um, for Jude, you can find Dude, it's Jude on Facebook. He streams
Yeah.
video
I
games.
think I'll say that I can start streaming again on maybe by the start of Monday,
Nice.
coming Monday. So I'll probably be playing more Splitgate. So yeah, that's one thing I'll be doing, and just keep playing the game until maybe play a bit more ranked. So that's gonna be fun.
Oh, nice. Here we go. Also, Kevin Duayan has a
Okay.
podcast
Oh
called
yeah.
Elitistang Weibo on wherever you listen to podcasts.
So
All
yeah,
right.
okay.
Thank you so much to everyone who's dropped by. Again, we are the Geeky Ones. That is it for episode 90 and 90.5. We are now. Damn, we can't believe it. How many years have we
We're
been
pretty
doing
much
this
10 whole
podcast?
episodes away. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. So
This is
yeah, for
insane.
those who are watching, thank you so much. For those who are commenting, thank you all. Thank you so much. Too.
Thank you,
So
guys.
that's really cool. And yeah, we're 10 away, and that's the geeky ones. And we'll see you next episode. So yeah, bye guys.
Guys,
Bye.
so one ex geeky ones.
Yos.